Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and councillors. At 6 o'clock, I declare the meeting open. Declaration of opening, announcement of visitors. We don't have any visitors who have been advised to us that we need to refer to, so I'll go to the acknowledgement of country. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Wandandi people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their culture, and the elders past and present, their descendants who are with us today, and those who will follow in their footsteps. Item 2, record of attendance, apologies, leave of absence. There's no leave of absence, but we have an apology from Councillor Sebastian Ciano. We note that there's members of the public gallery, and we will take account of you as you can. I appreciate your patience with the large crowd here tonight and our endeavours to have you seated. We now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the public question time. And I'm not sure who was the first question. Is that Councillor? Mr. Hearn. Could you please state your name and locality?
Brian Hearn, Mr. President, 85 Hardy Terrace, Peppermint Grove Beach. Look, I actually have 14 questions. There's a lot of people here tonight. If you want to cut me off after 2 and come back to me and let other people ask their questions, please do. Okay?
Comment. You asked, why don't you prioritise your questions and then say, look, you're happy to take the rest on notice?
Oh, no, I'm not happy to take them on notice, but if...
Well, you're prepared to take them on notice?
No, I'm not. I want to read them out tonight and get answers tonight. But
well, then, I'm not sure what you're saying then, but go right ahead. Proceed.
No, I guess what I'm saying is if you want me to ask 2 or 3 and then sit down and get someone else to ask, please...
No,
please
I think we'll
you'll go through
deal
it?
with you as the first person in front of us.
Okay. Mr. President, my purpose in asking questions tonight is to explore my concern that employee costs are too high for an organisation of our size. Reserves are shown to be running down at a concerning rate. Shire data indicates that the number of rateable properties are not increasing, and the Shire is becoming increasingly reliant on grant funding for capital works. If the figures presented tonight are accepted, then ratepayers may well be facing an annual rate increase as high as 12.45% through to 2035, unless the Shire takes action to reduce expenditure and completely work its plan for the future, which is 202535, that was only approved less than a year ago on August 27, 2025. I guess I asked the question, are we at risk of corporate obfuscation? So my questions are based on the following analysis of the Shire revenue and expenditure figures from 30 June 24 up to and including the proposed draft budget tonight. There are 3 general observations. Firstly, general rates have increased 33% over this period. Employee costs have increased 61.9% over this period. And employee costs as a percentage of general rate revenue have increased from 66% in 23-24 to 80.5% tonight if the budget is approved. My first question, Mr. Mayor, can you confirm that the administration has advised and explained to councillors the ramifications, particularly in relation to the plan for the future, resulting from the proposed decision to increase employee costs in the 26-27 budget by 1.913 million, an increase of nearly 12.5% over the past 12 months?
Thank you for your question. 2 workshops have been conducted with the Council on the corporate business plan for the future, with proposed projects and initiative considered in the 26-27, seeing the number of projects forecast in the adopted 25-29 corporate business plan reduced by 1.2 million for the 26-27 financial year due to the proposed increase in salaries. Given this document is reviewed annually, there is an ability to reduce expenditure across the corporate business plan to manage the rising costs in other areas of service delivery, alleviating the impact of substantial rate increases. Given the ongoing competing financial pressures on the organisation while we continue to mature and deal with legacy issues, the ability to be financially agile is necessary until our growth stabilises. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2.
Can we turn up the volume, please?
Yeah, it was very hard to actually hear you, Mr. President. So,
I need to get closer, apparently. Thank you.
Okay. Can you actually hear me?
But
can you
please
hear me?
proceed.
Oh, okay. Question 2. Was the plan for the future discussed as part of the 26-27 draft deliberations?
Well, I think as detailed in the previous response, yes, it was.
It was. Okay. If so, is Council aware that the proposed employee cost decision will result in the plan for the future, approved by Council 9 months ago, will fall into deficit after the imposition of those proposed general rate increases to the tune of 10.245 million over the life of the plan, unless, of course, there is substantial cuts to expenditure?
Is that the question I've got here?
That's the question I sent in.
As mentioned previously, the corporate business plan for the future is reviewed annually, which is a requirement under legislation, with cost reductions made for the purpose of maintaining annual rate increases that align with the Shire's adopted long-term financial plan.
So I guess the question was, is Council aware that the proposed increase tonight in the corporate business plan will result in a deficit out to 2035 of 10.254 million?
Is that your question here, or was that an additional question?
No, that was a question that I had. That's a question
No,
I
well,
just
look,
read out
we'll
and
stick
asked.
to the agenda if we may, because we've got a lot in front of us.
No, it's here. That's it, just there. It's on there.
Yeah, so you post it as part of the departments rather than.
Two question marks there. Anyway, I hear what you're saying. Fortunately, it's all recorded, so we'll be able to review it when we get the recording. Question 3. Can you confirm that the administration has explained to councillors that employee costs, if the proposal is implemented tonight without a cut to expenditure in the plan for the future, will result in the published general rate projections increasing from 7.87% over the life of the plan to approximately 12.45% out to 2035?
I'm not sure if I'm confused or is the business paper confused, but I'll respond to it as is listed here. That was listed here as question 3. Have you got it as question 3?
Yeah, question 3, that one.
Okay, fine, all right. I'll just deal with the response then, if I may. As mentioned previously, the corporate business plan for the future is reviewed annually, which is a requirement under legislation with cost reductions made for the purposes of maintaining annual rate increases that align with the Shire's adopted long-term financial plan.
So, Mr. President, I hear what you're saying, but I guess what I'm asking, the decision that you're making tonight on providing additional 1.9 million for employee costs will result in the plan for the future next year resulting in a 12.45 increase in rates.
Look, I'm not going to...
It's very clear.
Mr. Hearn,
that's what I sent in.
I'm not going to ad hoc a response.
Well,
The
President,
staff have endeavoured through this, the many very relevant questions you've asked to address your queries, and we'll work our way through it. If we left a stone unturned at the end, maybe we'll give some consideration to having another look at something else.
All due respect, Mr. President, when I submit a question and it's got a question mark on it, it is actually a question. But anyway, I hear what you're saying. As I say, it'll all be recorded and we'll be able to review it.
Look, Mr. Hearn, in the end, a responsible council has got to make the decisions they've got to make on the day.
Yes.
And then as events evolve and change and circumstances evolve and change, then an agile and reactive and intelligent and caring council will address those issues as they arise.
Sure.
I can assure you, any council that I'm deeply involved with, which I am in this one, is not going to run itself into substantial debt or net operating losses.
Fair enough. The fourth question, Mr. President, based on the rule of 72, a mathematical formula that we all learnt in year 10, the annual 12.45% increase needed to balance the plan for the future budget resulting from this employee cost proposed increase will result mathematically in an increase of 12.475, and it will mean that rates will need to double every 5.7 years. As an example, the current property rated this year paying $2,500 will need to pay $5,000 in 2031-32. If expenditure is reduced by the 10.45 million I mentioned earlier, which has been ignored, and the general rate increase of 7.587 is maintained, rates will only double every 9 years. Am I incorrect with that assumption that I presented to the staff for consideration and answer?
Thank you. As mentioned previously, I'll repeat the answer because it's effectively the same answer. The corporate business plan for the future is reviewed annually, which is a requirement under legislation with cost reductions made for the purpose of maintaining annual rate increases that align with the Shire's adopted long-term financial plan. Now, these are not tablets delivered from the mount carved in stone, but they are nonetheless guiding documents for the council and for the Shire. And indeed, as circumstances evolve and change, I have no doubt an agile, interested and engaged council will address the issues as they arise. But we won't be running substantial deficits. And rate increases can only be at what the community ultimately tolerates. So I guess I'll leave it at that. That's my ad hoc answer.
Yeah,
to try and elaborate on the questions you're asking.
Yeah, I hear your ad hoc answer, Mr. President, but in previous years, as you know, I've asked questions and the Shire never comes back and says, you are wrong, you're an idiot, go away. What I'm asking tonight, and it was a question with a question mark, are my assumptions incorrect? I mean, please tell me I'm wrong. If you don't tell me I'm wrong, I can only assume
I don't know
that
that we've actually validated those assumptions or not.
But I did ask that question.
But perhaps we haven't. Perhaps we haven't got the resources to do so. But what I'm saying to you is that we wouldn't allow that situation to arise. That's what good governance is about.
Yeah. Okay, question 6. We have over $203 million.
5 or 6? There's a 5 here. I've got a 5.
Well, you're only going to give me the same answers you gave for the first 4, so I won't bother. I won't bother asking.
Well, that's okay if you want to.
No, seriously.
And I'm happy to give the same answer if it deserves the same answer. But I'm also happy to hear your question.
Well, quite frankly,
and in fact, the response coming under the guidance from staff is quite different and quite substantial. But it's a matter for you.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage you to ask the question.
Well, in short, I'll answer the question. Question 5 for those in the audience. I won't read it out. I won't bore you, but basically the long-term financial plan is indicating that we're going to receive 8% rate increases over every year from 2025 to 2035. And the extra monies approved tonight will mean it'll be 12.75. That's what the question is. You don't need to answer it because you've attempted to say so in the last 4 questions.
Well, look, it's true. The answer is very similar. The question's very similar. And it's true, the answer is very similar. Yes. Now, the group here in the audience may not particularly like the answer either, but that's the reality. Yeah. The reality is, as previously detailed, the corporate business plan is reviewed annually with a view to determining what projects the Shire can afford to deliver, considering other competing financial priorities for that year, with the premise of limiting the financial impact on the delivery of projects initiatives through the application of higher than anticipated rate rises. The 26-30 corporate business plan is due to come to Council for adoption in July, and the report will detail the number of project initiatives that have been rescheduled or cancelled to ensure business can meet its financial commitments whilst maintaining the forecast rating strategy as detailed in the adopted long-term financial plan.
Thanks. Question 6. We have over $203 million of assets recorded in the Shire's balance sheet that need to be professionally maintained. Can you please explain why depreciation expense has decreased from a proposed $7.45 million in the plan for the future down to a figure of $6.77 million in the draft 26-27 budget, particularly given we're just in the process of completing a $13.5 million facility in Dalyella?
The timeline for asset construction and acquisition has changed since completion of the 26-27 plan for the future. The construction costs and timing of a bridge project has been moved to the 26-27 financial year, and the depreciation costs will start on completion of this bridge. Subdivision asset values transferred to the Shire are still being finalised for the 25-26 financial year, and any variation to budget can cause change to the estimated depreciation amount. Acquisition of major plant forecast in the financial year 25-26 is below the plan for the future budget for 25-26. Budget acquisitions of plant is below that of infrastructure, but the shorter lifetime will cause a high impact on depreciation amounts. Plant items with delayed changeover will have a nil or close to nil write-down value and reduced depreciation amounts.
Okay, thanks. Leads to my next question. Given a statement made by the acting CEO at the recent annual electors meeting in response to a ratepayers question, the meeting was informed that the statement of financial activity is the only true guide to determine if a budget is balanced. He then went on to explain to some length that the Shire's 24-25 budget, the last one that was audited, was in fact not balanced, but it was in deficit to the tune of nearly $6 million because depreciation is not funded. Given the acting CEO's informed comments, and one that I totally agree with, how can the administration continue to claim that the 26-27 budget is balanced when we know there is an unfunded depreciation charge on the books of at least, and it could be more, $6.77 million? When will this anomaly be explained to ratepayers that the Shire, unlike some other local governments, does not fund its depreciation, placing it in a position where it's becoming increasingly difficult to fund its capital and meet its maintenance obligations when they fall due?
The 26-27 draft budget does not generate an operating surplus. Capital expenditure is funded through a combination of rates, capital grants, borrowings and reserves. The long-term financial plan does not have an operating surplus until 2032-33. The surplus increases each year going forward from then, but not to a level that matches depreciation. There is ongoing work with data collection for asset condition to have a more accurate view of depreciation levels, given the Shire's current asset data is currently under full review.
Mr President, what the acting CEO said is because we don't fund depreciation, we are not in balance, we're in deficit now.
I can't comment on his comment at the time.
Well, you were there.
No, but what I can say that this current council and the current CEO is very conscious of the asset register and the depreciation factors that needed to be taken into account. In fact, our acting director is actually addressing this issue as we speak, and in fact it's a current active consideration of council to actually for the first time have an accurate asset register. Now we might point to history and say that should have been done, but it wasn't. We're doing it now, and that will bring forward the actual real numbers that we need to take account of into future long-term financial plans and corporate business plans. So we're not unaware of it, and we appreciate your comment and your advice.
Thank you, Mr President, appreciate it. Question 8. In each of the past three financial years, I've questioned the administration's ability to provide an accurate estimate of interest revenue. As an example, I advised verbally and in writing and in a written question that the 24-25 budget figure, for the last completed financial year, should have been 1.406 million rather than the ultra-conservative management figure of 1.151 million. Fortunately, the WA Auditor General, when he audited the accounts, subsequently confirmed that the correct figure was in fact 1.416 million. I have serious reservations about the 26-27 interest revenue figure, but will decline to give you my figure because when I've previously provided that figure, no one bothers to check it, no one bothers to respond, and no one bothers to tell me that I'm wrong. Has Council cited a proposed cash flow budget for 26-27 to determine that the interest revenue figure is correct and reasonable and confirm that councillors are not falling into the trap of approving a draft budget that in the past has been shown to understate revenue and overstate expenditure?
The forecast interest revenue for 26-27 is based on the estimated end-of-year forecast for 30th of June 26. As we finalise the 25-26 annual budget process, following Council's determination of the Shire's rating strategy, an adjustment may be made to this figure with justification to Council for variance detailed in the final adjourned budget report. So it's a work in progress.
Mr President, with due respect, it's now the 10th of June and the figure ain't going to change by very much between now and 30 June. But anyway, I hear what you're saying. Thank you. Question 9. The draft 26-27 budget does not provide a statement of reserve accounts. I may have missed it, so please tell me if I have. It is noted that the reserves over the last 3 financial years have decreased at a disturbing rate of 54% from $13.6 million to a proposed opening balance of $7.4 million this year. Have councillors been fully briefed on these proposed changes provided within the reserve account statement? Have the councillors been fully briefed on these proposed changes and provided with a reserve account statement? And can you give confidence that the reserves are intact, and when will the information be provided to ratepayers to view?
Thank you. The reserve accounts movement details were presented within the financial annual budget documentation as per previous financial years. During the rate setting workshop, the Council are presented with financial modelling through the review of the long-term financial plan, which forecasts the rate model impact on financial reserves.
So when will the ratepayers get to see the...
Yeah, that'll be published. As I just said,
can you tell me what page you're on?
The final annual budget documentation will have that information in it.
Can you tell me what page it's on? I couldn't see
I'm sorry?
Could you tell me what page it's on? I couldn't find it.
Yes. The CEO
Sure.
would like to comment on that.
Thank you for your question, Mr Hearn. Obviously, a broad overview in terms of impact on the budget was included in the statement of financial activity. What we will endeavour to do through the community budget workshops that's being held.
Again, please?
Oh, sorry. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Yep. So through the community budget workshops, which are going to be held towards the end of the month, I believe the 25th and 27th of June, we will endeavour to give a full breakdown of the movements in and out of the reserves to give you an overview of what the impact is going to be. Until that, we're just finalising that now as we finalise the year end for 25-26. But until that point, we won't be in a position to share with the community.
So it wasn't provided. Okay, so I didn't miss it. Okay, thank you. Mr President, I note that the $16.114 million capital works program is 67% funded by external grants. Well done to all those involved with the grant funding. I think it's a great outcome. Are councils aware that the Shire can now only provide a miserly $1.16 million allocation out of its own funds to fund our road program of $4.577 billion, which is not a bad figure, to service its $162 million road and drainage network? Even 10 years ago, the Shire budget was able to provide more than this. So going forward, how is this trend sustainable? Other than capital expenditure detail on page 44 of the draft budget, what other road maintenance works are planned to be undertaken in 26-27, or is what I saw, the $4.577 million, is that all? Is that all there is?
Required expenditure on road infrastructure remains challenging, with a shortfall across the entire local government sector, obviously including ours.
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
with a shortfall across the entire local government sector.
Oh, I can't hear.
We can't hear you. Your sound system's terrible.
Required expenditure on road infrastructure remains challenging with a shortfall across the entire local government sector. Estimated 26-27 budget expenditure for road maintenance is $6.1 million. There is continued work on developing the asset data collection to better measure future expenditure requirements, which we referred to in the previous answer.
Okay, thank you. Question 11. Recently, the Shire approved a revised trail program, which was 2 years in the making with a consultant. I note that work will or cannot proceed on any of the proposed recommendations until a business case is prepared. What sort of information is the Shire planning to identify in its business case study for a trail before any of the projects can proceed?
There's more.
No, well, that's the question, Mark. That's the first question.
Well, okay. I'm going to invite the Acting Director, Jeremy O'Neill, to respond to that question in detail.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the Chair. Community feedback received on the development of the Council Adopted Trails Master Plan, or TMP, clearly highlighted that the Shire's current trail service levels are rated at just 2.3 out of 5, which are below expectations and do not meet community standards. Accordingly, the renewal, upgrade and improvement of existing trail infrastructure have been identified as a primary focus for the first 5 years of TMP implementation. These trails are already in existence and as such do not require the development of a new business case. They do, however, require integration and inclusion in the Shire's long-term financial plan, program of works and corporate business plans, and need to be considered against other asset renewal and design projects in parks and engineering and works respectively. Is that the first part, or did you?
That's the first part.
Yep.
Second part is what is the budget allocation for trails in the 26-27 budget?
Yep, sorry, there was a little bit more through the Chair. Prior to the development of a new trail, however, a business case is required. A structured 8-stage trail development process is outlined for the development of new trails to ensure quality and consistency. The process includes an initial 5-step sequential planning stages, much of which can be undertaken in-house by our professional staff. There will, however, need to be some consultancy support to undertake the detailed site assessments, concept planning and corridor evaluation prior to the business case being presented for the Executive and ultimately Council consideration. In terms of your second part, Mr Hearn, through the Chair, the key TMP project identified in the draft 26-27 budget...
Sorry, what was that, the key what?
Trails Management Plan project. That was a bit of an acronym, sorry. The key Trails Management Plan project identified in the draft 26-27 budget is the development of a management framework, a blueprint, if you like, for new trail development and future trail management in the Shire. This will provide the basis for future asset renewals, upgrades and promotions and how we schedule new trails going forward. This is estimated at approximately $20,000.
Right. And did I detect from your answer that last question was that most will be done in-house? Is that what you actually said?
Well, out of the 8 stages, we do have recreational staff that can undertake 5 of the 8 stages. But like I said to you through the Chair, there are some certain consultancies around, things like the corridor, there's environmental stuff where we need more specialist advice.
Yeah, I guess the reason I asked, a business case, I mean, in the real world, BHP does a business case when it opens an iron ore mine, I guess, other than the Minnunup Trail, which is probably about 9/10 of your budget, the rest of it is really just maintenance. I wonder why you've got to do business cases to undertake that basic work. But anyway, you don't need to answer that because I didn't actually ask it in the question. Question 12. Recently, the Shire commissioned HFM, one of Australia's leading business efficiency consultancy companies, to review its Capel Recreation Ground Complex. That includes the Capel Country Club, a building owned by the Shire, and our last watering hole in operation at the moment in Capel. The report identified the need to spend in excess of $4.8 million on renewals, maintenance and capital expenditure. It also identified the need for a capital spend of approximately $1 million in 26 2026. Given the conditions of these important Shire assets identified in the HFM report, what has been allocated in the 26-27 budget, or even the long-term financial plan, to maintain and improve the assets in the complex that justify the consultant's recommendations and based on what he's put in his report?
Thank you, through the chair. The council endorsed informing strategy, the Sports Spaces Plan, has considered current provision, projected demand, and examined existing and future site feasibilities and the financial parameters of the Shire's integrated planning framework. The review is focused on the townships of Dalyalup, in particular Dalyalup and East Dalyalup Sporting Precinct, and the proposed Dalyalup South, Capel, inclusive of the Capel Sports Ground or Capel Recreation Ground, the Capel Country Club and the Hardcourt Precinct, and in Boyanup, the Memorial Park Sporting Precinct. It has also considered the impact of population growth and demographic changes since 2012 and projected growth over the next decade. In Capel Township in 25-26, circa $35,451 was spent on an asset renewal project for the Capel Hardcourts, backboards and sports lighting infrastructure. The courts are actively used by basketball, pickleball and with some informal use for tennis. In the short to medium term, funds have been allocated from this informing strategy to inform the Shire's long-term financial plan and annual program of works. This focus is targeted on asset renewal and upgrade projects for the Capel Sports Pavilion, Capel Recreation Ground and sports lighting tower infrastructure. The long-term financial plan also includes some asset renewal funds to keep the country club safe and compliant. The Sports Spaces Plan, whilst acknowledging that asset management plans are one key driver that underpin informing strategy and facility provision, such as those reports developed by HFM, has identified a key strategy, long-term, 20-plus years, would be to consider the replacement of the Capel Country Club due to the building deficiencies with an integrated sports club facility that could service all sporting users, including bowls, cricket, hardcore sports, soccer and future hockey training. As such, it's not the intent of the council, based on the integrated planning and reporting framework parameters, to undertake a full asset upgrade and renewal project for the country club beyond the life of the proposed short and medium term renewals. Key projects have been identified in the short to medium term in the long-term financial plan, and of those projects, 16 asset renewal upgrade projects have been identified for the Capel Recreation Precinct in the draft long-term financial plan from now until 2031-32. 6 of these projects relate to the Capel Country Club. I can either list those 6 projects or I could include them with the minutes through the chair.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question 13. Despite a substantial increase in employee numbers, a parade of consultants have been financed over recent years to produce multiple plans for the future of the Shire. What has been allocated in the 26-27 budget for consultants?
Thank you. The 26-27 budget has service contract costs of $11.04 million, which would include any contracts classified as consultants. The budget expenditure classification covers all external vendor agreements, maintenance contracts, outsourced operations and technical advice. For comparison, the 25-26 budget for service contract costs was a cost of $11.78 million.
So I take it, Mr. President, we don't know what we're paying consultants this year.
I'm sure we really do, but I don't know that I have it in front of me tonight.
But I did ask the question. I mean, surely if we're looking at a budget, someone must know.
If we're able to provide that, we'll do it on notice.
How much notice do you need? Anyway.
Well, look, I'd appreciate decorum, please. I'll answer that. We probably need actually more than 2 working days. Now, we have endeavoured to respond to your detailed questions, comprehensive and detailed and relevant, and the other questions that are before us in 2 working days. So yes, we do need more time.
Well, Mr. President, unfortunately, I only had 3 working days to actually prepare my questions, but anyway, I'll move on. But
No, I'm not going to let that pass, Mr. Hearn.
Please.
We are in the middle of an extremely important special council meeting, which of itself requires an enormous amount of internal effort, bureaucratic energy to present here tonight, including the directors and the councillors. And the notice we had regarding your questions, and no disrespect to you, we had effectively 2 working days to deal with it. And I think the responses that have been provided to this point are quite comprehensive and not at all dismissive of your concerns.
I just would have thought that this has been in process for 5 months, that you would have probably known a bit more. But anyway, I appreciate your comments and the staff's inability to do it. The last question, can you confirm, based on Shire's rating documents, that the number of rateable properties in the Shire has only increased over the last 3 years from 8,300 to 8,317? And in asking that question, I do understand the impact of the interim rate revenue figures that are also in the report.
I'll read it into the record. The rateable properties in 23-24 were 8,044, 24-25, 8,123, a growth of 79, 25-26, 8,292, a growth of 169 properties, 26-27, 8,317, a growth of 25 properties. Growth over the last 3 years has seen 273 new properties registered in the Shire.
Okay, so the rates this year are only calculated on 8,317 properties, and that's all we've got this year.
I'll invite the CEO to answer that.
Hello, thank you for your question, Mr. Hearn. So the rate table recognises 8,317.
Sorry, I can't quite hear.
The rate table recognises 8,317 because they're the ones that's registered within our rating system, albeit the rate revenue does recognise interim rating on top of that, included in the rate revenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, staff, for preparing the answers, and I'll look forward to hearing the audio so we can work out what hasn't been answered. Thank you.
The next series of questions comes from Laura Phillips from Jalora. I don't know, is Ms Phillips here or is someone going to speak on her behalf? I've been invited to read the questions out. Or is someone else going to do it? That seems to be no. Then I'll read the questions. We do know that it's Laura Phillips and she lives in Jalora. These questions concern the proposed changes to the annual rating strategy, specifically the intention to remove or significantly reduce the historical rating differential applied to special rural and rural residential properties in Jalora. As a Jalora resident, I'm subject to planning restrictions, infrastructure limitations and property obligations that do not apply to standard urban residential lots. For example, development of my property is subject to building envelope controls that limit where development may occur despite the substantially larger size of the land holding. As a Jalora resident, I'm also required to self-fund and maintain essential services and infrastructure, including private water supply, gas supply and on-site wastewater management, private drainage and associated maintenance and replacement costs. In addition, I'm responsible for maintaining extensive fire breaks and vegetation management requirements across a large property at a significant ongoing cost and effort. I also bear the costs that are inherent to manage the large rural property, including removal of unsafe trees and management of vegetation hazards that would not typically arise on a standard urban residential lot. I do not receive many of the localised urban infrastructure benefits associated with residential estates, such as footpaths, street lighting, curbing and reticulated drainage networks. Nor do I seek these services. I choose to live in a special rural area for the rural lifestyle it provides. Ms Phillips then has a series of specific questions. If special rural properties have historically attracted a differential rate in recognition of their planning restrictions and service obligations, what circumstances have changed to justify the removal or reduction of that differential? I'll refer to the CEO to deal with that answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Can everybody hear me? Okay, if I speak at this tone, thank you. Rural residential is separately zoned under the Shire's adopted local planning scheme to differentiate between the land use opportunities and services provided to these properties that differ from those in more urbanised areas. Residents who choose to live in the rural residential zone do so through their preferred lifestyle choice, understanding that it is not a local government's responsibility to provide scheme water, sewerage, reticulated gas, public transport and the like. These are responsibilities of other agencies. Local governments are responsible, however, for other infrastructure which supports these properties, and the cost of maintaining this infrastructure and services continues to increase year on year. Through the Integrated Growth Framework consultation process that was conducted late last year across all town sites, what was apparent is the change in demographic, particularly in Jalora, seeing younger families moving into the area and openly sharing with the Shire they would like footpaths, streetlights and similar services for their family's lifestyle of choice. As an organisation, we are trying to balance the needs of many and not just the few. And the alignment of all residential zoned properties, which include rural residential, is the fairest approach to rating.
Thank you. Question 2. What factors were considered when determining the special rural property of approximately 5 acres, where development is generally confined to approximately 10% of the land area, should attract the same relative multiplier as a standard urban residential property? You're going to do that or me? Me? Okay. Development restrictions on rural residential lots are generally facilitated through the imposition of building envelopes, which are restricted to ensure that environment and lifestyle values of these properties are maintained. These restrictions do not impact on the ability of these properties to be used for ordinary residential usage, and the local government responsible, however, for the other infrastructure that supports these properties and the cost of maintaining this infrastructure and services that continue to increase year on year. Question 3. In reaching this decision, what consideration was given to the fact that many Jalora residents are required to self-fund and maintain private water infrastructure, including water tanks, pumps and associated equipment, gas supplies, on-water waste water systems, private drainage infrastructure, extensive fire management obligations and other significant rural property maintenance costs that do not apply to standard urban residential lots? Response. Residents who choose to live in the rural residential zones do so through their preferred lifestyle choice, understanding that it's not a local government responsibility.
What?
It's not a local government responsibility.
Can you just speak up?
It is not a local government responsibility. I'm sorry, I don't want to seem like I'm shouting to the rest of the audience, but I'll do my best. That it is not a local government responsibility to provide scheme water, sewerage, reticulated gas, public transport and the like, as these are responsibility for other agencies. Now, I live in a different area of the Shire. I've got scheme water, I'm very fortunate to have that, and I'm very thankful for it. But I have a septic system, I don't have sewerage, I don't have public transport, I don't have reticulated gas. So we all strike a balance in the lifestyle choices we make. Question 4. Has the Shire undertaken any formal assessment comparing the planning restrictions, development rights, infrastructure provision and property servicing obligations of Jalora special rural properties against standard urban residential properties? If so, will that assessment be made publicly available? Answer. No assessment has been conducted, as the original purpose of reducing the rate in the dollar for rural residential dates back to 2010-11, seeing the rural residential zone purposely discounted by 12% to absorb the impact of a revaluation process which occurred that prior year. The intention at that time was to apply the 12% discount with a view to realigning the residential and rural residential rates in the dollar over the following years, but that did not occur. Since 22-23, the adopted rating strategies has been correcting this seeing the rural residential rate align closer to the residential rate in the dollar, with the gap currently reduced from 12% to 3.3. The 26-27 rating strategy finally aligns parity between the two rate zones. Question 5. Given that Jalorup residents are subject to significant development restrictions and generally do not receive many of the localised urban infrastructure benefits associated with residential estates, including footpaths, street lighting, curbing and reticulated drainage, what objective criteria were used to conclude that the special rural properties should now be rated the same differential as urban residential properties? The reply: to align residential zone properties to the same rate in the dollar that was in place prior to 2012, and the purposeful discount to lessen the 2012 revaluation burden. Question 6. Previous statement on objects and reasons for Zone 12 residential noted that infrastructure requirements for these properties differ from those in more urbanised areas. Does the Shire no longer consider these differences to exist, and if so, what evidence supports that conclusion? Reply: rural residential is separately zoned under the Shire's adopted local planning scheme to differentiate between land use opportunities and service provided to these properties in comparison to those properties in more urbanised areas. The objects and reasons document reflect this, enabling council to impose a higher or lower differential rate in the dollar dependent on service delivery requirements at the time. Residents who choose to live in the rural residential zones do so through their preferred lifestyle choice, understanding that it is not a local government responsibility to provide scheme water, sewerage, reticulated gas, public transport and the like, as these are responsibilities of other agencies. Local governments are responsible, however, for the other infrastructure which supports these properties, and the cost of maintaining this infrastructure and services to continue to increase year on year. Through the integrated growth framework consultation process that was conducted late last year across all town sites, what was apparent is the change in demographic apparently in Jalorup, seeing younger families moving into the area and openly sharing with the prior Shire that they would like footpaths, street lights and the like to service their family lifestyle choices. As an organisation, we are trying to balance the needs of the many and not just the few, and the alignment of the all residential zone properties, which includes rural residential, is the fairest approach to rating. Yep. The next question is from Glenys Malatista. Glenys is from Jalorup, and she's indicated she'd like me to read the questions. I'm more than happy for you to do it. The move to eliminate the discount for zones 12 rural residentials have many residents up in arms. Can you please explain why we're getting an increase of over 9%? I'll invite the CEO to respond to that.
Thank you. Through the Chair, prior to 2010-2011, the rate in the dollar for residential and special rural, or rural residential as it's now zoned, had the same rate in the dollar. In 2010-2011, the rural residential zone was purposely discounted by 12% to absorb the impact of a revaluation process which occurred in the prior year. The intention at the time was to apply a 12% discount with a view to realigning the residential and rural residential rates in the dollar over the following years, but this did not occur. Since 22-23, the adopted rating strategy has been correcting this, seeing the rural residential rate align closer to the residential rate in the dollar, with the gap currently reduced from the 12% it was discounted by to 3.3% current year. The 26-27 rating strategy finally aligns parity between these two rate zones.
Thank you. The next question is from Graham and Maureen Briggs from Jalorup. I have a question.
Sorry, through the chair, I'm just conscious that that was one question out of about 3 or 4 for Glenys. Is that correct, Glenys?
Yeah, I didn't read my letter because I sort of.
Okay.
Reading it out.
No, we don't mind reading out the letter. I just want to make sure your questions are answered, that's all.
Well, we're dealing with questions on notice. We can actually take questions from the floor, subject to council's indulgence. Now,
You read them.
well, whose questions am I reading?
Glenys.
There's four. Gladys's questions.
Well, I've only got one in front of me. I'm sorry. I apologise. If there's more, I've got a series of questions from Graham and Maureen Briggs. Now, when did these questions come in? Glenys, when did you submit these questions?
Put together the one form.
Yeah, it was to do with we do not have street lights, parks, footpaths.
But no, the question what I'm trying to establish, when did you submit these questions?
Well, this question was submitted at the same
7:7
time.
PM on the 8th of June to records, info at Capel.
How do we miss them? Look, I think I'll invite the CEO to respond to that. Okay. Look, we're not in a position due to the enormous quantity of questions and in the interest of reasonable meeting procedure, we will take those on notice. Thank you. Now, do we have questions from Graham and Maureen Briggs?
They have two each.
Yeah. Graham Briggs, 7 Tarrant Court, Jalora. My first question I know is speculative, but the question is, if Jalora and Dalyella were to come under the Bunbury City Council, how would the remainder of the Shire fund the operating costs?
Answer. Operating costs would substantially reduce as those two locations would be fully serviced and maintained by the City of Bunbury. Remaining operating costs would be funded through rates, grants, fees and charges income derived from other Capel Shire town sites. So it's a nil-sum game. In other words, if it transfers to Bunbury, they'll have to pick up the tab and we don't. So I don't see where that gets us.
I know you would lose a lot of...
Pardon?
I know you would lose a lot of commitments, like in the parks and
Look, we're not seeking it. We're not seeking it. I mean, Bunbury might be, but we're not.
No, it was a speculative question, but it does deserve looking at. And you have given the answer. Thank you. My next question, we've had numerous correspondence with Main Roads and the Shire over the noise emitting from the Wilman-Wadandi Highway. Now, Main Roads are not prepared to do anything, as they say it is a rural road and it meets the environmental requirements. The Capel Shire claim it is out of their control. My question, therefore, is why are the 1 acre blocks in Jalora paying residential rates when the state government deem it a rural road?
Thank you. I'll invite the Acting Director, Isabel Fry, to answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. Main Roads WA has their own guidelines which set out the criteria they use to classify the roads within their network and guide their requirements. These consider the strategic requirements, including the network role, the design function and the traffic volumes, but do not consider the zoning of the area pursuant to the Shire's local planning scheme. The areas of Jalora that have been zoned for residential purposes have been done so due to their proximity to local centres and the lot sizes that the area has been developed with, which are consistent with low density residential zoning.
Thank you for your answer. I'll leave you.
You've got further questions?
My two.
Okay.
My two.
Well, look, we don't mind moving on, but we don't want to offend you.
I'm not offended, sorry. But I'd like to read my questions, if I may.
So question 3?
I suppose, yeah, if you want to call it that. Okay, my first one is, it's to do with strategic context, and it probably should have been, should the move to a 3-directorate organisational structure and associated costs be a separate motion, i.e. should it have been voted on?
Yes, and it has been.
Has been.
The organisation transitioned to a 3-directorate structure on the 1st of May 2026 as detailed in the previously endorsed workplace plan.
In a workplace plan, so...
Well, the workplace plan was adopted, I can't remember the date exactly, but towards the end of or last year sometime. That's 12 months in the making.
Right, so the efficiencies have been there. Second question, why are the Shire absorbing in the year 25-26, it says, 4% to reduce the burden only on this sector for rural and land use, which is UV?
The UV zone properties undergo annual revaluation process with Landgate seeing the UV property increase by 10.5% in 26-27. If you do remain for the remainder of the meeting, you might see that particular aspect come up for consideration.
Yes. Is that the same as what was in the agenda, the explanation?
Beg your pardon?
Was that the same as what was in the agenda for the explanation of the 4%?
Well, I didn't give an
Absorption?
explanation. Well, the technical response is that UV zone properties undergo an annual evaluation process with Landgate, seeing the average UV increase by 10.5% in 26-27. The rate table published in the business paper provides some discount to that. But that may be a topic of conversation for councillors later this evening.
Right, so that will be brought up. Okay. Right, thank you very much.
Look, I think we found, maybe it's the way the page structure was done, but we think we found the questions from Ms Malatista. And look, we're going to have to move on. We've been here doing this for nearly an hour, and I'm just going to have to deal with it in a fairly succinct way if I can. Now, you had several questions more, which we've now found and located, and I apologise. Do you want me to read them or do you propose to read them? This is from Glenys. I'm going to rush through it a bit. We've had numerous correspondence with Main Roads. Well, we've had that question. Oh, here we go. My apologies. The move to eliminate the discount on Zone 12 rural residential with many residents up in arms. Can you please explain why we're getting an increase of over 9%? Well, I think we largely dealt with it, but I'll try and go through it quickly. Prior to 2000... Yep. Oh, okay. Well, then, look, I'm totally confused. My apologies. I'll get the sack after this. Probably deserve it. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Who's up for getting rid of me? Well, there's 1, 2. Well, I think I'm still here. Okay. Neil Rollinson. Mr. Rollinson. I'm going to take that question on notice. Beg your pardon? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Whose question are you taking on notice?
Neil Rollinson's. Look, we've been on this topic for an hour.
But it's important.
I know it's important.
Just to interrupt you too, we haven't been on this topic for an hour.
Well, that was about rates. I beg your pardon. I know you're very sexually interested in your rates, but that was about rates in general, and he was perfectly entitled, as you... excuse me. Don't talk across the chair. Thank you. He was perfectly entitled to ask general questions about the rates, which he did, and we attempted to respond to them. They were quite detailed and comprehensive. I'm prepared to entertain several more questions, but we've got to bring it to an end. Okay, Neil Rollinson. Now, Mr. Rollinson's not here, so do I read them? Okay, I'll read them. Okay. Question 1. When is Council going to seriously consider a special rate zone for short-term rental accommodation properties which I raised at Electors meeting in February 2026? I note no modelling has been done to establish additional revenue that could be raised. When are Council going to insist on some numbers that will give an indication as to possible revenue boost from these commercial businesses? You appear to be happy to siphon cash from rural residential lots, but unwilling to tackle the obvious opportunity to close a revenue gap. I invite a response from the Acting Director, Isabel Pryor.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. This has not been tabled for consideration by council for this meeting. The Shire does, however, currently impose a $400 annual application and renewal fee for development applications for unhosted short-term rental accommodation, which are required to be reapplied for every 12 months. Hosted short-term rental accommodation is exempt from requiring development approval, which is a statewide exemption. There are currently 38 properties with development approvals in the Shire of Capel, and the annual fee is currently considered the most effective and equitable method for recognising the commercial usage of these properties. Approval patterns have shown that usage for short-term rental accommodation is often done temporarily and is not ongoing, making imposing a special rate on these properties challenging at the moment.
Question 2, Rural Residential Zone 12. What has, which states, includes all developed and undeveloped properties within the zoned rural residential. The primary land use of these properties includes dwellings and small rural pursuits. The objects and reasons for the rate of the zones apply a differential rate, provide service and infrastructure to these rural residential lots where infrastructure requirements differ from those in more urbanised areas. Question, effect. What has changed from the statement which was previously used to justify a discount from the standard residential rate to now no longer consider that Zone 12 does not have all the services afforded to town lots? In fact, that we have very little public open space, 5-acre lots especially, no footpaths, curbing, stormwater drainage, public transport, street lighting or proper driveway crossovers, to say the least. We do not rely on skimmed water, sewage, reticulated gas or green waste collections, nor are we asking for any of these services. The response. Rural residential is separately zoned under the Shire's adopted local planning scheme to differentiate between land use opportunities and service provided to these properties that differ from more urbanised areas. Residents who choose to live in the rural residential zones do so through their preferred lifestyle choices, understanding that it is not a local government responsibility to provide scheme water, sewage, reticulated gas, public transport and the like as these responsibilities of other agencies. Local governments are responsible, however, for other infrastructure which supports these properties, and the cost of maintaining this infrastructure and services continue to increase year on year. Through the Integrated Growth Framework consultation process that was conducted late across last year to all townships, which was apparent as the change in the demographic, particularly in Jallora, seeing younger families moving into the area and openly sharing with the Shire that they would like footpaths, street lights and the like to service their family lifestyle choices. As an organisation, we're trying to balance the needs of many and not just the few. As an organisation, we are trying to balance the needs of many and not just the few, and the alignment of all residential zone properties, which includes rural residential, is the fairest approach to equitably distributing the total rate burden.
What? Sorry, it sounds like you're mumbling. We can't hear you back here.
You mumbled the last half the sentence.
I'll read it back.
Okay.
Okay. I'll read the last 2 paragraphs of the answer. I'll do the best I can for you. Through the Integrated Growth Framework consultation process that was conducted late last year across all town sites, what was apparent is that a change in demographic, particularly in Jallora, seeing younger families moving into the area and openly sharing with the Shire that they would like footpaths, street lights and the like to service their family lifestyle choices. As an organisation, we are trying to balance the needs of many and not just the few, and the alignment of all residential zone properties, which includes rural residential, is the fairest approach to equitably distributing the total rate burden. You want to make one? Yeah. The CEO would like to make a statement.
Hello, thank you, everybody. Glenys Malatesta, our apologies. The email that we received your question in, the one part of it seemed more like a statement than a question. So we will endeavour to provide a more comprehensive response to that, ensuring the question that was answered this evening is taken in the context of the broader statement that you wrote, and we will provide that in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. We did receive questions after cut-off time from Glenn Bone of Jallora regarding the specified area rating. He had 2 questions in relationship to that, and a Walter Cook of Windanup. Question 1, explanation of the rate states and what proposed the 9% rates will we get to justify the raise for Gwindanup residents. We'll have to take those questions on notice. They were received after cut-off. Thank you. We've now dealt with the questions on notice. Is there any questions without notice? Who wants to go first? You choose amongst yourselves, but please keep it to the point and brief. And if they are repeats of the previous questions we received on notice, I will not extend the opportunity because we've already dealt with it and we've got to move on.
Yeah, David Hutton from Capel River.
I'm sorry I didn't catch that.
David Hutton from
Yes.
Capel River. The first bit, we had a valuation increase last year of 35% from the Valuer General, which meant that the Shire, we're in Zone 11, went from 0.5589 cents in a dollar down to 0.532 cents in a dollar, but we still had a 25% increase in rates. Now, my current rate is $21,691.24. Now, for me to pay that on having a $100 head margin on selling beef or $400 a head at the moment, I've got to sell somewhere between 220 head of cattle to pay the Shire rates, or at the moment 55 head of cattle to pay Shire rates. The other thing that amazed me was Brian's comment that 80.5% of general rates goes to salary. So, yeah, I'm really starting to wonder whether we even need to be in the Capel Shire. Maybe I might move to the Donnybrook Shire where I would have 0.48% in the dollar, where I'd have about $2,500 less rates to pay. I mean, it's a lot of money.
I guess those decisions are entirely for you,
Yes.
but I might ask the question, seeing as you've invited us to respond, what would be the market value of your properties?
That doesn't affect my income.
It may not, but it does affect the rating.
It does affect the rating.
Yes, and
really
I'm sorry, we
serious.
can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can actually.
No,
by
we can't. We
reducing-
can't do anything about the principle. We might choose to adjust the rate in the dollar,
Yes.
but we can't do anything about the principle. Now, what you're asking for is a dispensation, and that might be a separate question. But your properties, don't want to speculate, but I suspect they're worth considerably more than mine.
But the thing is, if Donnybrook, and I haven't got Busselton or Dardanup's figures, but if they can do it at 0.48 in the dollar.
Well, look, I don't want to get involved in a long-term argument.
but I'm just
I drive past rural properties every day, and when they come up for sale, they sell in a blink in the Capel Shire. So the disadvantage for operating here can't be too significant, I would suggest.
It's the increase, not the rate.
Anyway, I'll
Thank you.
pass it over to somebody
Next
else.
question.
It's the increase you're talking about.
Hi, I'm Cara Andrew, and I am from Stratham. I just didn't want to reread something, so I will Okay, my question's in regards to the move towards a flat rate in the dollar across zones 1, 2, 3, 4 and 12, with 12 being special rural, which encompasses Stratham. The increase of the rate in the dollar for Stratham residents has been partly justified by some data from the recent residents survey, which may indicate that young families and newer residents whom have moved into Stratham would like suburban services like footpaths, extra bin collections, verge maintenance and extra parks and gardens, which, to be honest, isn't going to happen because we simply can't afford it anyway. Despite this justification, Stratham does not feature in the 2026 or 27 programs of works. Nowhere. We featured once in the program of works for last financial year, and the financial year before that, we again did not feature at all. This increase also contradicts your own document, the agenda tonight, on page 67, where it states that rural residential, the object and reason for the rate in this zone is to apply a differential and minimum rate to developed and undeveloped properties to raise sufficient revenue to provide services and infrastructure to these rural residential lots, where infrastructure requirements differ to those in more urbanised areas. It differs because we don't have it. So my question is, with no works projects to be undertaken in Stratham in 26-27, and with the Shire's own reasoning for a differential rating system, how can this council, in good conscience, vote in favour of Zone 12 having the same rate in the dollar as areas 1, 2, 3 and 4?
Well done.
I'll invite the CEO to give you a technical response. Thank you.
Thank you for your question through the chair. I suppose it goes back to the decision that was made back in 2010, 2011, when through the valuation process for rural residential, special rural, as it was known, was purposely discounted by 12% with the intention to realign it, because prior to that time, the residential and rural residential, their rates were aligned. And it hasn't occurred. And if you feel as though services have been substandard to support rural residential properties, it's probably because there's been a lack of revenue that's been collected to support additional support and infrastructure to service those areas. So I understand that may not sit well, but at the end of the day, what we're seeing is through community consultation with families moving into the area, whereas families that have been within those areas for some time may have moved there because they don't want that infrastructure or it's not what they moved there for. But the impost on us to start delivering those services to those areas is getting greater. And based on the current modelling that we've had to endure over the past few years, we can't afford at this moment in time to put any great investment in those areas to service what's coming through from the community who live in those areas now.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up question? So I know from being an ex-councillor that the council and Shire staff prepare the programs of works 5, 6 financial years into the future. In what year, thinking 5, 6, 7 financial years into the future, does the Shire start implementing those services into Jallurup and Stratham?
The CEO respond to that.
Thank you. It goes back to a comment that the Shire President made, and it was in with the commentary and brought up through the commentary of a question that Mr Hearn raised about our asset management data and how we schedule and programme our programmes of works. We have probably over the past 2 years really had to take a step back and have a look at how we're doing that more sophisticatedly moving forward. Historically, we haven't probably had systems processors or even the management information system to sophisticatedly look at how we plan our schedules of works. And it's intentional over the next few years that we will be doing that more so, but with the understanding what the requirements are from the community. And so when you say I suppose, what have we got planned over the next 3 years? Ideally, yes, we would love to see more things happening within the rural residential rate or the zoning there to, I suppose, support what's coming through from the community. But that has to be taken into consideration with all the other things that we have to play catch up with all the zones across the local government, that where we haven't had the data to make sound decision on that in the past, we will need that moving forward.
With all due respect, Sam.
No, let her talk. Yeah, let her talk.
Stand for election next time if you wish. On, can we have the next questions, please?
Russell Dawson, 15 Watkins Road in Jora. On several occasions tonight in answering questions has been mentioned that you are hearing from younger families in what I'd call the lifestyle blocks, wanting footpaths, lighting, etc. In the neighbourhood I live in, I've never heard of that whatsoever. The question is, can that be quantified in any way so that those of us, and I'm sure there's plenty of people here that don't want those services and don't want to be rated at a higher rate to pay for those services, can the Shire quantify how many people, what's the level of those inquiries, where are they from, and how much are they influencing your decisions? And I think it's important that the councillors hear this, because is there anyone in this room who wants those services that don't have them now? Is there anyone who, So I think it's a fair question for us to ask that. Can you quantify the level of inquiry from the general public who live in those areas who are saying they want footpaths and lighting, etc.?
The CEO to respond to that. That was the subject of community meetings and the report that came back from that, but I invite her to give a comment on that.
Thank you for your question. Yes, we can, because if you read the Integrated Growth Framework plan that came to Council, I think it was in May. Actually, no, it was late last year, because it went out for public consultation in January. In the Jalorup section, it clearly articulates that the feedback we received through the consultation process, that's what we was hearing back from the younger families. Now, I think there's 583 residents, there's 583 homes within the special rural rate or the rural residential rate. There's not 583 people in this audience, so not everybody within your community has a voice.
I'm hearing you loud and clear, but we all know a lot of people, and I'm hearing it.
You've asked your question.
Thank you,
and I appreciate your question. Thank you.
Mr. President, my question is it's Graham Briggs from Tarrant Court, Jora. My question is exactly the same.
Well, don't ask it.
Yes, it is, because
No.
I believe...
It's within my purview that if the question is a repeat of the previous question and it's without notice, to decline the opportunity. So if it's the same question, I'm not going to allow it.
I did want to add something, but...
If you've got a different question, please go ahead.
Word differently.
The question is, where did those results come from? You just told us that it came from a survey, but I read the survey and I didn't bring the results tonight because I didn't think I needed them. But after hearing your comments I believe the answer is flawed, because those questions, if you look at the percentage of people that responded, it doesn't match what we're being told tonight.
Well, thank you for that observation. That's technically not a question. What you are inviting us to do as councillors is ignore the authorised and appropriate community survey mechanisms that we're obliged to undertake. Now, we appreciate the audience here tonight. We're listening to you very patiently, and we'll take account of it. But nonetheless, you should not discount those formal community consultation processes that council undertakes and is obliged to undertake. You might not like the answer as it suits you. A lot of things happen in my life I don't like, but I have to accept it. No, what's the question?
With indulgence, can I just read out
It better not be, I will not tolerate a repeat of previous questions. No, you need to go to the podium.
Yes, I will. Okay. This is the Community Perception Survey. The Community Perception Survey that was conducted. Is that what you're referring to? That survey?
Look, if you're asking... Sorry, if you're asking the same question about questioning the results of that survey, I'm not going to allow it. We've already answered that.
Okay, over 73% were over the age of 50. 46% lived in Dalyell.
But what's the question?
Is this the survey, the Community Perception Survey done in November 2024, is that the survey you're referring to?
You're referring to the wrong survey.
There is another one?
There was one done late last year.
No. Late last year?
I'll refer to the detail with the CEO, but that's my understanding.
Thank you. Through the chair. It was a community consultation process carried out October, November time last year, and it was called the Integrated Growth Framework. And it's a body of work that was a continuation on from the place plan, and it goes into each of the communities and looks at the distinct characteristics and the residents' requirements in terms of how they would like their community to grow and what they would like to see happen in their community moving forward. So those community consultation processes happened in every community, and it was very well attended by all age ranges, and that's where the data was collected from.
Is there somewhere we can see that?
Yeah. So if you go on the Shire's website, I think it went to council in November last year. And it's in the agenda papers, and it's called the Integrated Growth Framework Plan. And there's a section on Jalora, and it gives the feedback that was received across the community.
Okay, I will go there. Thank you very much for that.
Online one.
Well,
I beg your pardon?
right.
That being the end of public question time, we now move on to declarations of interest. We have one declaration of interest from Councillor McCleary regarding item 6.5. Thank you, Councillor McCleary. That's a proximity interest, and he's able to remain in the room and participate in the debate and vote. I would now like to move a motion. The motion that item 6.5, I'm sorry, no, we're going to listen to the presentations. My apologies. Councillor McCleary's interest was a financial interest, but falls below the threshold. We now have a petition, and we invite Mr. Ross Underwood, is it, from Planning Solutions, on item 6.5, endorsement of a referral proposal, proposed Bunnings Warehouse and associated earthworks. Thank you, Mr. Underwood. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Shire President and councillors, for allowing me the time to speak to you tonight. My name is Ross Underwood. I'm a town planner. I'm a principal of Planning Solutions with over 21 years experience in that profession. I'm here today representing Citygate, which owns over 10 hectares of service commercial land in Bunbury.
Sorry, we can't hear. Please use the
I'm going to lift it. How's that? Is that good?
Well, yeah, okay. Land of giants, do your best.
All right. Thank you. So thanks for your time tonight. I'm here to talk about the Bunnings proposal, and I'm here talking on behalf of Citygate, which owns over 10 hectares of service commercial land in Bunbury. Citygate. Can you hear me okay?
Should we try one of these ones? Yeah, that's a good idea. Sure. I think that's rubbish.
There we go. Testing 1, 2. How's that? Brilliant. Now I'll start from the top. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Good evening, Shire President and councillors. Thank you for your time. My name's Ross Underwood. I'm a town planner, a principal of Planning Solutions. and I'm here representing Citygate, which owns over 10 hectares of service commercial land in Bunbury. Now, this proposal before council tonight, with respect, it does not represent or benefit the Shire, and the council would be doing itself a disfavour if it supports it. So the land in question is 5.6 hectares of land. It's zoned and ready to be developed for residential, potentially with 84 dwellings. Councillors, you might recall I was here some 3.5 years ago talking to the urgent need for affordable housing, particularly key worker accommodation, people in the medical and allied health industry who were struggling to find housing at the time. And I'm pleased to say I did have council's support in those proposals to help resolve those issues. Now, since that time, the housing crisis has only worsened. Just in the last year, house prices in Dalyellop have risen 13%, more than double the national average. The median house price is now sitting around $770,000. So the question that we should be asking ourselves is, are we doing everything in our power to provide ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, the housing opportunities they need in this area? We certainly don't want to give up ready-made residential zone land for a speculative commercial venture. So there is a question in the agenda on whether this land could actually be developed for residential. Let me assure you, in my experience, there is no barrier to this particular parcel of land being developed for residential. The officer's report notes that there's a highway nearby and there may be road traffic noise. There's certainly no issue in developing land near a highway. If you go up and down the highway, there are residential estates up and down. Noise is easily resolved through an acoustic wall along the edge of the estate, as you'll find in many other places. It's clear that this particular proposal before you tonight represents the landowner who achieves a higher commercial return for a service commercial development on this land than they would on residential. Is this a good reason to throw away residential zone land, providing potentially more than 84 homes for our future families for a service commercial venture? There is also the matter of due process. Due process would require that a proposal for a commercial development of this scale, it's quite a large development, is supported through strategic planning proposals. But nothing has been proposed for this land. There is no local planning strategy amendment, no scheme amendment, no structure plan amendment that's been made for this land. Now, when we created a new local centre on Albert Road in Bunbury, we went through the due process. There was a local planning strategy amendment that was submitted, processed and approved through the process, followed by a scheme amendment before we lodged a development application for that particular proposal. Orderly and proper planning demands such an approach. This allows strategic questions on residential supply, questions on the appropriate location for commercial development and commercial land to be resolved and discussed on a district and community-wide scale. The proponent is choosing to bypass all of the due process and present this application through SDAU, bypassing the Shire in the process. Councillors, if you value orderly and proper planning, then you should not be supporting a proposal that denies the Shire a proper say in planning for its future. As a final comment, the applicant submitted a net benefit test. Now, this identifies several flaws, most notably the demand for the proposed floor space will not materialise for 20 years. What this means is that if this particular development goes ahead, it will deepen the vacancies in the service commercial tenancies and the service commercial zone land around Bunbury. Now, this is not just a Bunbury issue. The service commercial precincts of Bunbury serve the entire region. Dalyellop's 10 minutes down the road. Bunbury is more than just a single Bunnings. There is a diverse range of offerings there. Any loss of services in that area will impact the residents of Dalyellup just as much as they would Kerry Park or Glen Iris. Councillors, I urge you not to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next submission is from what have we got here? Monique Warnock.
Now, can I move that up there? Hopefully you won't have too much problem with my voice. I've got a loud voice. Thanks, Shire President, for the opportunity to speak tonight, and good evening, councillors. My name is Monique Warnock and I'm presenting on behalf of a large number of local businesses and community members in Bunbury. On Monday night, the Bunbury Chamber of Commerce and Industry hosted a meeting in Bunbury after a large number of people raised concerns about the significant economic impact the closure of the Bunnings store would have on Bunbury and the significant impact the rezoning or changing the land use of 15 acres of residential land to commercial would have on the entire region in the middle of a housing crisis. The Minister for the South West, Don Punch, the Federal Member for Forest, Ben Small, and Upper House MLC, Steve Thomas, are one voice with us and agree that relinquishing such a huge residential area during a housing crisis and at a time when we have a shortage of housing lots is going to have a detrimental impact on our communities. Steve Thomas has lodged a petition in the Legislative Council today which asks that a moratorium be put on rezoning of all residential land during the housing crisis across WA. Ben Small has asked me to pass on to you his concerns about the proposal and that housing must be the overriding priority in the climate that we face ourselves in. The Bunnings proposal is right alongside a major new over 55s lifestyle village on one side and a residential area on the other side. And Bunnings' solution to any noise, pollution, odour and traffic safety issues in their application is to erect a 3.5 metre acoustic boundary. This is not going to cut it. With the relocation of the Bunnings Trade Centre in Halifax also to the site, there will be more than 60 truck movements a day. Again, that's massive noise, pollution, odours and traffic safety issues from early hours to late into the evening in a residential area. Do Dalyellup residents know they will be subject to 24/7 reverse beepers, trucks unloading, continuously running and diesel fumes? Do the people of the Shire of Capel know there will be less affordable housing for our young people? When the impacts of this new retail land affects the neighbouring local government area, you need to have a broad advertising and stakeholder engagement process. Bunbury residents found out about this proposal at the end of a consultation period which went for only a few weeks. As a public relations professional, I can tell you this timeline is woefully inadequate. How do you expect the average person to digest hundreds of pages of complex planning documents? Not only is it impossible to communicate something of this magnitude properly in this time frame across all channels, but there needs to be clear, easy to understand messaging and proper engagement. And you cannot expect people to then digest this information and formulate a response in that time frame. Bunnings has not properly communicated this or held proper community consultation sessions to give everyone time to explore the likely impacts. Why is this? Bunnings has had months, if not years, to prepare their application, and all the hundreds of pages of studies that were lodged with it. By trying to ram this through, Bunnings has shown complete arrogance and a total disregard and lack of respect for our communities. The State Planning Policy SPP 4.2 activity centres applies to the Bunbury metropolitan area, which includes the surrounding suburbs of other local government areas. Dalyellup is one of these suburbs. This state planning policy requires careful and coordinated planning of activity centres, which is completely missing in the Bunnings application. The urban development zone that applies here and across all of Dalyellup is premised on structure planning first. This structure plan process has been key to the success of Dalyellup. This SDAU process is avoiding this necessary step, and the material provided does not meet the required
Ms. Warnock,
standards.
30 seconds, half a minute.
To say this usual process has been satisfied by alternate means. This SPP 4.2 activity centres firmly discourages out-of-centre unplanned development like what Bunnings is proposing, which is an established land use planning principle inherent in the WA planning framework. A structure plan amendment should weigh up all opportunities as well as constraints, fully investigate the net benefit test and set out and weigh benefits thoroughly and carefully against any potential impacts. This has not been adequately requested.
Ms. Warnock, may I interrupt? It's 5 minutes. Have you almost finished?
I've got about 4 paragraphs, Mr. Shire President.
I'll give you 30
Can I
seconds.
seek your indulgence on that?
We've got a
please?
big night. You've got 30 seconds.
Thank you very much, Shire President. This has not been adequately addressed and is absolutely required before this application should be considered. The retail needs assessment provided is insufficient, focused only on benefits to Dalyellup and not the impacts on the Bunbury metropolitan area, including volume of existing available zoned retail land. This assessment does not set out existing zone land accurately, including in and around Dalyellup for commercial purposes, underselling what exists to try and suggest it is underserviced. This report focuses on passing traffic on the new Centenary Road bore access as means to justify exposure and hence create new artificial need. The whole application is incredibly rushed, and at this stage there are more questions than answers. What is the rush?
Thank you, Ms. Warnock.
In finishing, I would like to ask...
Thank you, Ms. Warnock.
Could I just make this last comment, Mr. President?
I've indulged you by 1 minute. Please make it brief.
Thank you. I would like to ask that the Council move a motion tonight deferring their opinion on this matter and carry out their own proper, wide-ranging public consultation to allow people to properly explore the likely impacts. Thank you, Mr. Shire President and
Thank you, Ms.
Councillors.
Warnock. Presentation from Mr. Daniel Lewis from SLR Consulting.
It's going to knock your eye out. Thank you, Shire President. Good evening, councillors and Shire President. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening, specifically on item 6.5 of tonight's agenda, which we all know is the Bunnings proposal. I'm here on behalf of the client, Clarendon Property, and also Bunnings, and wish to thank specifically the planning staff for their work in preparing a comprehensive referral response. And we strongly endorse the recommendation for conditional approval for this Bunnings warehouse for Dalyellup. Councillors, tonight, the Shire is presented with an opportunity to support a landmark development and investment within the Shire. Opportunities of this scale don't come around often, and I strongly encourage you to seize this opportunity. Local community consultation has provided their written support, with over 82% writing in support of this development. I'd like to also make the really pertinent point that Dalyellup has always anticipated having a Bunnings of this nature in it. All the land east of Coles and Woolies was previously identified as early as 2012 in the district centre for a Bunnings warehouse. We know since this time the land has been developed for other things, such as fast food, the food bank, fuel, Red Dot and others. I'd like to make 2 significant mentions here. 2 things that have happened in the past 5 years that have made us to arrive at this point tonight. And the first is I'd like to thank Council for their decision to deregulate the retail trading hours within the Shire in 2023. This was pivotal. Thank you. And 2, the identification and construction of the southern link of the Wilman-Wodandi Highway at Lilydale Road has created a distinct service commercial site at the entrance and gateway to the Shire, not previously contemplated for Dalyellup. Throughout the development journey, us, being the applicant, have been strongly supported by our Western neighbours. We would like to express our thanks specifically to the directors of Piara Land Holdings, who operate and are developing the Lifestyle Village, for their unwavering support for this proposal. As councillors will be aware, this development site on the corner of Bustle Highway and Lilydale Road is the last remaining undeveloped parcel of land of this scale which could accommodate a Bunnings of this size. The existing zoning for the site is urban development, with future development simply due regard, with the decision maker not bound by the Delhi-Alap East local structure plan. Contrary to recent media attention, the site is not zoned for social or affordable housing, nor does the structure plan zoning and the public purpose, notably the Western Power Reservation, provide a contemporary planning framework for which significant regard can be given. I'd like to make this point very clear to Council tonight. Many residential development in this location is severely compromised, as the noise and light impacts of the roundabout do not provide an appropriate level of amenity that would be befitting of a residential area in Delhi-Alap. This site is unique due to its separation to the rest of the Delhi-Alap fabric via the landscaped 5 Mile Brook and its direct frontage to both Lilydale Road and Bustle Highway. We acknowledge the work being undertaken south of the district centre for the release of land by Topshore, along with Satterlee's work currently releasing land at Green Patch, as well as the recent announcement by both the Planning Minister and the Honourable Don Punch for Chewett Brook Estate directly north of Lilydale Road. All 3 of these aspects, as well as Delhi-Alap South, are areas of residential growth and housing supply. This is not a simple case of housing supply versus Bunnings. The development application lodged with the SDAU comprehensively addressed all key planning considerations, and this is reflected within your own planning officer's assessment of the application. This is a unique situation, as it was also echoed through agency comments that have been received to date, specifically Main Road's written support for the proposal and the access arrangements that are being proposed, along with Dwer's support for the finished floor levels and the bulk earthworks associated. It is a unique situation where you get an alignment between a local planning authority, Main Roads and Dwer and all government agencies in support of a proposal. In closing, I'd like to thank the Shire's planning officers for the work that they've done on this proposal, and we fully support the officers' recommendations and the conditions contained therein. Sustainability initiatives within conditions 26 and 27 are strongly supported by Bunnings, with a national rollout of EV charging, solar panels on the roof, rainwater harvesting for irrigation in the garden centre, and other battery recycling and community fundraising events. Yes, I had to mention the sausages. Councillors, in closing, this development represents an opportunity for the Shire, and I strongly encourage you to support the planning officer's recommendation here. Strong endorsement of this referral by Council will send a clear message to SPC and the Shire's local community that the Shire is ready to seize this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions if councillors had questions, but I don't need to.
Well, I didn't invite that opportunity with the other proponents, but is there a brief question anyone wants to ask? We may well have questions of the staff during the debate of the motion. I'd now like to move a motion that item 6.5, endorsement of the referral response, proposed Bunnings Warehouse and associated earthworks, be brought forward for discussion of other agenda items for the convenience of a number of members of the public attending with an interest in this matter. Can I have a mover for that motion, please? Moved Councillor Noonan. Seconded Councillor Sharp. Any speakers against? I'll put that motion. Declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. We then move on to the motion. Item 6.5. That Council endorse the referral response as contained within attachment 5.5.1, which recommends support with conditions for an application for a single tenancy development for bulky goods showroom, trade supplies, garden centre, incidental cafe and associated car parking and landscaping, in brackets Bunnings Warehouse, and associated earthworks at lot 502 and 507 Bustle Highway. Authorise officers to provide the endorsed referral response to the West Australian Planning Commission. Can I have a mover of the motion, please? Moved Councillor Noonan. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Hastie. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the three people who've come in representing various different planning organisations to talk to us this evening. This is a very, very important motion. It's a very important opportunity, and it's very interesting to see the interest that it has generated in both the Capel and the Bunbury communities. Mindful, of course, the long history of Bunnings and its origin in Bunbury. I would make the point, or the points from the discussions that or the presentations that we've had, that in Perth, or Mr. Underwood made the point that was talking about the residential opportunities that we would be foregoing. Well, I'd make the point that in Perth, there are no Bunnings buildings within 10k of the Perth CBD. Okay, I think the nearest one is south of the town of Vic Park. It's about 10k from Perth. There might be one, or the one at Floreat might be a little bit closer, I don't know. But the whole point of having a CBD is to have a high density residential and high-end commercial activity. So the residential value of the land that we're talking about at Lilydale Road doesn't bear a candle to the high density residential potential that Citygate has if that land is rezoned by the City of Bunbury to allow them to build high density residential property there. So that's a question for Citygate. Mrs. Warnock made the point that there are no noise barriers about noise and barriers and light and so on and so forth. The current Bunnings site at Citygate, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't have any noise barriers shielding that building from the neighbouring residential places either. Thank you, I'm speaking. The point was also made that, or a question about the Bunnings this new building being further from various areas of Bunbury. Well, I'd also make the point that it will in fact be closer to the Bunbury suburbs of Withers, of Usher, of College Grove, and of the new proposed suburb of Tuart Brook. They're all in the city of Bunbury. Those four suburbs will be closer to this new Bunnings warehouse, as well as, the benefit that people in Dalyellup, Jullurup, Stratham will also get. So Bunnings has done their homework here. They have looked at the population centres and they have looked at where new builds are occurring and, where people are going to, where their customers are coming from. Obviously places where people are putting in new buildings and new gardens and new retic and all of that sort of stuff, new sheds. They are the people who tend to need Bunnings more than people who've, established properties that have been there for decades. So I commend Bunnings for taking the opportunity to look up and out in the same way that they looked out from that central position. They looked out and put stores up in the northern end of the Greater Bunbury region. I don't remember there being any up in arms cries of the sky falling when those Bunnings warehouses were built.
Councillor Noonan, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll wrap it up. So I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for the Shire, and I'd encourage my fellow councillors to endorse the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hastie.
It's a commercial decision by Bunnings itself. It's not something that us councillors or the townspeople of Bunbury or Doyella can make a decision for Bunnings. Bunnings have made that decision to move here, so I support that move, and hopefully Bunnings will be located where they intend to be. Thank you.
Councillor Hastie, any speakers against? There are no speakers against. I might just add the comment. Is there any questions of our Director, Ms Fry, in respect to the matter? I wouldn't mind you telling the councillors or informing the councillors and the people in the gallery how we're dealing with the historical understanding or belief that this land was zoned residential, and that how that can be moved through the system to the satisfaction of state planning.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. So as our presenters have mentioned, there is a structure plan that is approved over this lot, which contemplates a few things. So that is a large portion of the land for a Western Power subcentre, which they quite some time ago determined was surplus to their needs and has sold on, and that property has since had other approvals over it for things that are not residential usages. And then the remainder of that area was identified for some residential purposes and housing, and then the rest for public open space and roads as that relates to that. As was highlighted in the referral response, structure plans are now a due regard document, so we do take them into consideration as we are doing a planning assessment, and that looks at if something that is not consistent with what is in that approved structure plan, is there merit in that planning proposal? Will it impact any future development of that area? But I think it's been demonstrated that the remainder, the balance of that structure plan area has been developed generally as intended, and this site has undergone changes over time in how the road has been developed, Western Power making their own decisions, and just how that has changed. So I think the outlook is different for this site than it was before, which gives us that basis to be able to make a decision using that due regard framework. That would ordinarily be how we consider it if it was something that the Shire was determining. The SDAO pathway does operate a little bit differently in that they do have the ability to determine applications that are inconsistent with the Shire's planning framework, and there is a pathway for them to do that. So while our advice has been given on the basis of how we would ordinarily consider something to be appropriate, the SDAO does have a higher level of decision making that they can go outside of our planning framework if they choose to.
Thank you. Look, I'll just speak to the motion. I'll take that indulgence. It seems to me that we make the decision based on the structure plans and zoning and the planning instruments in general, and our decision is an endorsement. It's not an approval. It passes up the regional assessment report to state planning, and they'll consider it on its merits, I'm sure. So it's not our decision to approve or not. Our decision is to whether we feel inclined to endorse it based on the staff's advice. It seems to me that that would be a reasonable position to take. And if you think about it, the issue about whether, well, the Bunnings store in a not effectively CBD, but in the central commercial area of Bunbury, and the disadvantage they would be placed under in event of a relocation of the store, and that's not our decision, that's Bunnings' decision. Well, what about Eton? It's already happened, partly. And part of our mandate or instructions and regulatory framework we work under is that we're not actually supposed to take account of the commercial implications for another operator. Basically, our decision determination is based on the planning instruments and the zoning. And on that basis, I'll be supporting the proposal. Thank you. Right a reply? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's Councillor Noonan, Councillor Hastie, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Mobb, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Montgomery and Councillor Boyers. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can we invite Mr Cleary back in, Councillor McCleary back in?
Mr. President, could I?
Yes, Councillor Noonan.
Could I suggest a 5 or 10 minute adjournment?
Yes, I've been requested to suggest a suggested 5 minute, 5 or 10. 5 minute adjournment. So let's take a 5 minute adjournment for those that need a break. Have we got everyone? Yep. Thank you, councillors. The meeting resumes at 8:04 and we move on to item 6.1, the draft annual budget, annual rating strategy, differential rates. The motion is, as published in the business paper, it includes the rate category and the rates per category for the GRV properties and the UV properties. And there is a 6-point items with the table that gives the CEO the opportunity to advertise the rates, advertise this determination rather, and eventually bring it back to council for adoption or otherwise. I'd like to move the motion as printed. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded, Councillor McCleary. And briefly speaking to it, I would like to say that I think that in general, the approach that the staff have recommended to staff is a reasonable one, and it is based on equity as far as we can go at this point. There might be a different view of that, and we might consider that in a moment. But I would like to support it as it is, and I'd move on to my seconder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I concur with your comments in moving this motion and put it on the table. I've heard a lot of discussions tonight about where do we spend rates? We spend rates for the whole of the Shire of Capel. That's what it's about. Our decision tonight also doesn't extend to just this single year ahead of us. It multiplies forward to a lot of other years. So we're looking at the long-term financial plan. And any tweaks now have a longer impact, and then we'll have to go back into the long-term financial plan and adjust our aspirations maybe to what's in there. So we need to think very carefully about any adjustments in there. What I would say, each resident has an opportunity to use any facility in the whole of the Shire, whether it's going to the markets at Boynup, whether it's going to the shops in Dalyalup, whether your kids play sport on an oval and things like that. We hear this talk about street lights and footpaths. Well, I don't have a footpath directly out the front of my house, but there's a footpath around the corner and I can use that. There's cycle paths into town. There's trails that we've heard about that we can all go out to and get a bit of an exercise, and what a great thing that is that we do. So when we're considering these things, it's not narrowing it down to where I live and what's out my front door. It's about what's happening within the whole community. And that's what rate setting's all about. So we need to be very careful about how we adjust this. And I think what's presented is a fair process in the share of that. We also heard that, we might amalgamate with Bunbury, but we've heard, and I stand corrected by the CEO, that the GRV rating in Bunbury has just been changed. It's on a different timescale to us. And when I read through it, Bunbury has got a 6.5% increase on their rates, and they don't have separate rates for us. They're all where we're trying to head with this Shire. So I'd like to see us get on with the game and endorse this motion as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Speakers against?
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
President.
Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move an alternative motion, and I've submitted that to the staff earlier, and ask if that could be put up on the screen.
Is it an alternative motion or an amendment?
It's an amendment to the proposed UV rural land use zone 10 and 11 rate in the dollar from 0.005115 to 0.005267.
A seconder for Councillor Noonan's amendment. I'm sorry, Councillor Mogg, I didn't see you there on my right. Thank you for seconding the motion. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councillor Mogg. I think it's important to step back a little bit and to consider or reflect on what rates really are. Rates are a tax on property wealth. They are a tax on property wealth. They are not a fee for service. Say that again, they're not a fee for service. And so a lot of the arguments, and I admit that I am guilty of them as well in previous years, coming from Jalora and saying, well, you know, footpaths and street lighting, we don't have them, and we don't want them. And what we pay our rates for is for the pleasure of not having them, okay? From an expenditure point of view, I have about 100 metres of paved road, bitumen out the front of my house. No streetlights, no footpath. I pay approximately just over $3,000 in my rates for a 5-acre rural residential block. Now, I know that there are houses in Dalyella which are paying similar rates of about $3,000, which have far, far less in terms of pavement, only 10 or 15 metres worth of pavement, and so they might have a footpath and a street light. Well, and that's good for them because that's what they want. Okay, so the amenity that they enjoy and that they have pleasure from, they've made that decision, and that's where they are happy, and so similarly for me. Similarly for rural blocks. Now, we know that there are rural properties in the Shire that are rated in a different way. All rural properties are rated in the UV, the unimproved value method. Now, that occurs every single year, and that rating is based on what could this property reasonably achieve if it was put on the market. So what's its market value? Not what money will it generate if I put cattle on it or sheep or put a crop on it. What can I get for it if I put it on the open market? And the point's been made. Rural properties don't tend to last very long in the Capel Shire. They tend to get picked up pretty quickly. Now, I take Mr. Hutton's point. If he's paying over $20,000 worth in rates, it probably means that he's probably got 10 or more titles, and that he's for his farm, and that the average of those titles would probably be less than $3,000. Okay. The other consideration is that those rural properties have the ability to generate an income. I don't have that ability on my 5-acre bush block. Okay, I don't have the capacity to raise a crop or a herd and so on and so forth. In addition to that ability to raise revenue from their property, they also have enormous tax benefits and depreciation benefits that the regular PAYE taxpayer just doesn't have access to. So they can write off or have a tax benefit for all of their fencing. I can't. For the contractor who comes in to do their fire breaks, I can't. For their sheds, I can't. For their motor vehicles, for the fuel that they use. So, and most farms are owned in a farm financial trust, the vast majority of it, which gives additional tax benefits as well. Right down to...
Councillor Noonan might be going a little bit off topic.
Yeah, okay. So the point I'm saying, or point I'm making, is that I'm sympathetic to the rural community in Capel Shire. I come from rural families on all sides of my background. But what we're looking at today and what we're being asked today is to share the rates burden equally and fairly across the Shire. So
5 minutes. Do you need an extension?
Maybe 1 or 2 minutes.
Can I have a mover for an extension? Councillor Voyers, a seconder. Councillor Mogg. Put that to the meeting. Those in favour? Declare that carried. You have an extension, Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the point that I'm making is that we have in front of us proposals that realign the rural residential rate up to the dollar, which means a 9.3% increase in their rates. Understandably, the vast majority of the audience who was here earlier this evening, not happy about that. And I can understand why. This proposal would give a 1% discount to the 10% increase that the UV, 10.5% increase that the UV naturally received from its Landgate revaluation. So the net effect is a 9.5% increase in rural properties. We have made, as part of that proposal, the additional revenue generated from this increase will be ring-fenced to contribute towards rural road maintenance costs, generating an additional $72,985 in rate revenue for that purpose. Now, that takes the rural roads expenditure that we're making from our pockets, not from grants, but from our pockets, up from 1.16 million to 1.23 million. And the entirety of that $73,000 to be spent in rural roads. Now, we have traditionally, year after year after year, we have always discounted the increases, UV increases that rural properties have received from Landgate. What we're talking about is here tonight and is realigning this. Now, I will be happy if every member of the gallery walks out of here unhappy, annoyed with the rates increase that are being proposed for their areas, provided that they also acknowledge that, at least I'm not alone. At least, perhaps this is a little bit fairer. Okay, Dalyellum, we still have the special area rate. We're paying extra. Julurup, okay, we're paying for the amenity of not having all of that stuff. The rural areas, we're paying a bit extra to have some better roads. And I think that by doing this, by passing this proposal, this amendment, that we will end up with a fairer system, a fairer rates take, and it will also give us the funds that we need to deliver on the aspirations that people in the Shire have put towards us. So I commend the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, President. I'll take this opportunity to speak. Where do I start? First, I'd just like to acknowledge everybody that attended this gallery tonight. You are valued and have the right to be heard. Thank you for being passionate on your beliefs and your concerns. I have experience, I'd like to say, across all zone rating categories. I was raised on a sheep wheat farm. I have experience there. I have lived in urban residential. I've been a renter. I've been a first homeowner, built first home in an urban, and then that gave us the collateral to buy our dream property in Chullora. An acre. That was our dream and the lifestyle. And what's offered tonight goes against our Shire vision and heart values, a lifestyle of choice, connecting community, culture and country. It's a fantastic vision. But it's discriminating now on what's proposed for our Chullora community. I also have a business of 35 years with my husband, so I know what commercial's about and what we get flogged, not in the Shire of Capel. And services we don't get there, even sewerage. We've got to provide our own rubbish bins. We also have an investment property in Dalyellup, so our daughter and granddaughter has a secured home. So we pay the rates in Dalyellup, and the comparison between Dalyellup and Chullora.
Excuse me, Councillor Mogg, are you speaking for the motion or against it?
Against.
Well, you actually seconded it, and there would be the normal expectation you would speak for it. So I'm confused.
I speak for it, but
I'm confused as to how we should deal with this. We can't go back and invite you to withdraw your seconding, but I do encourage you to speak cogently for the motion that Councillor Noonan has presented.
Okay, I refuse. I'll have another opportunity.
Beg your pardon?
I will finish. I'll hopefully have another opportunity arise to speak.
Before I
leave
put
it as
the amendment, is there any other speaker who wishes to foreshadow another amendment or something similar? Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to foreshadow a motion.
Well, what is the nature of the motion? Because so we can deal with it as a foreshadowed motion. So what, it's a change to the rates?
Yes.
Okay, then we will deal with the amendment and the substantive motion should that follow from there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other speakers for the amendment? I can't speak because I've moved the motion, and Councillor McCleary can't speak because he's moved the motion, I don't believe. Is that right? I know, we can speak the amendment. Well, then Councillor McCleary. Yep. Okay. Councillor McCleary.
Yeah, I'm going to speak against the amendment, and I'm a bit concerned and that we're talking about numbers of bits of land that Mr. Hutton might own, and we're making that personal. We don't know. Haven't got that on record. You need to kind of state that. But in essence, and I'll stand corrected if someone's... If you own a commercial farm and you sell it, you'll be paying capital gains tax on it. You know, it's profit. That's the way commercial properties work. We heard from Mr Hutton and I was a bit surprised, 400 head of cattle or whatever it was, or 200 head of cattle to pay for his rates. That's quite a bit. So it's a bit of an impact on him on his running his business. The other thing that you've got to understand is the UV are trying to run a business and work the way through it. So I find that I think the motion as presented by staff is a far better outcome at the moment. And I'd rather see a bit more time spent in talking with UV and getting that into place before we set a new rate on them that's different to what was originally presented.
I think it was a speaking against.
Yeah, I was.
Okay, is there any more speakers for? I'll speak for it. It seems to me that what Councillor Noonan's amendment is seeking to do is to provide more equity across the entire rating system. It's not a perfect instrument, but what it does do in the current proposal that he's put forward, it provides more equity. And in the sense that to the extent we're considering adjusting the rural residential rate to make it equitable with the general residential rate, then the opportunity to consider UV rural rates in the same manner is now presented for us by Councillor Noonan's motion. And I think his suggestion that that increase be ring-fenced or quarantined and applied to rural road maintenance, which is sorely in need and is something that we're funding out of our own budgets. We're not get some grants, but not enough. So I would suggest that I would support the motion. And do I have any other further speakers for or against? Councillor Noonan, right of reply. Councillor Noonan forgoes his right of reply. I'll put the motion. Those in favour of the motion? Councillor Noonan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Boyers. That's lost. We now revert to the substantive motion. And the substantive motion is, I would suggest you might like to outline your alternative or prospective motion so that we can have some idea of it. Don't move it formally, but until we deal with the substantive motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So basically, I'm wanting the categories that are currently proposed to increase by 6%, I would like to see them increase by 5% instead, and the special rural category to be reduced from 9.3% to 7%, and all other categories to remain as is.
Okay, so if we don't deal with the substantive motion by passing it, then we then actually come back to the foreshadowed motion, which is also subject to amendment, I might add. So those in favour of the original published document, now the original motion put forward by staff in table 1 and including the 6 points, those in favour? I'm sorry? Did you want to speak?
Oh, do I get to speak now?
Oh, sure. You're going to speak against it. No, what are you speaking to? Well, we can't do it until we deal with this.
We're not doing another motion.
Okay. Okay. I'm advised that you can speak to your motion at this point. We've still got the... I'm advised by the CEO that you can speak to your proposed motion or foreshadowed motion.
We need a second.
But you'll need a seconder. Is there a seconder for your proposed motion? Councillor Hastie?
Is it an amendment or a new
Yeah,
motion?
it's a foreshadowed motion because we haven't dealt with the substantive motion. I don't think it's right, but I'm being advised that this is the way to go.
Point of order there, Chair, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
And I'm only using my knowledge of the process. I think this is, as was with Councillor Noonan, another amendment to the substantive motion.
Yes.
And therefore, we should, as we did with Councillor Noonan's motion, go through that correctly.
Yep.
Having done that, and being conscious of Councillor Mogg's desire to speak or further speak, that's when you'd get the opportunity ordinarily. That's my understanding of it. So
Yep.
I'm just going through what I understand to be the process.
Yeah.
And I do understand about the foreshadowed motion, the terminology. However, I think you're amending the figures.
Correct. Yes.
Which is what Councillor Noonan tried to do. Yeah? Thank you.
I'll accept
President,
that.
if I may, can Councillor Montgomery please repeat her proposal?
Yeah, well, thank you, Councillor Mogg. I was about to offer that up as chairperson. Thank you as presiding member. Thank you. Councillor Montgomery, would you like to express your motion or amendment in clear terms, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I move that the proposed differential rates be amended so that the rating categories currently proposed to increase by 6% be reduced to a 5% increase, and the special rural category be reduced from 9.3% to a 7%, and all other categories remain as proposed.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Mogg?
Now can I speak? Yep. Mr. President, I move the amendment before us because while I recognise the significant work undertaken by staff in preparing this budget and rating strategy, I do not believe the proposed increase strikes the right balance for our community. I understand the need for a rate rise. I don't like it, but I understand it. I understand that the cost of delivering services continues to rise. I understand the importance of maintaining infrastructure, planning for growth, and ensuring the Shire remains financially sustainable into the future. However, I do not support increasing most rate categories by 6%, nor do I support the proposed 9.3% increase for the special rural category. Over the past several years, our community has faced sustained financial pressure. To put it plainly, they need and deserve a break. Many households are still dealing with significantly higher mortgage repayments, increased insurance premiums, higher grocery costs, escalating utility bills, and higher fuel prices. The economic uncertainty we see both nationally and globally continues to flow through to family budgets here in the Shire of Capel. For many families and businesses, there is very little room left, if any, in the weekly budget. For many households, their annual rates notice is one of the largest single bills they receive all year. While discussions around percentages can sometimes seem small on paper, every percentage point translates into real dollars for ratepayers. Every additional increase places further pressure on family budgets, retirees on fixed incomes, young families, small business owners, and those already working hard to keep up with the rising living costs. As elected members, we have a responsibility to remember that behind every rates assessment is a household, a family, or a business. The difference between a 5% increase and a 6% increase may appear modest within a budget document, but for many people in our community, it represents another increase on top of many others they've already had to absorb over the past years. If I'm being completely transparent, my personal view is that an increase closer to inflation would be much easier for many households to absorb in the current economic climate. However, I also recognise the financial realities facing our Shire and the responsibility we have to ensure service continues to be delivered and maintained into the future. For that reason, I'm not proposing a 3% increase tonight. The amendment before Council represents what I believe is a reasonable compromise. I acknowledge that a 5% increase remains significant and will still be hard felt by many households and businesses across our district. Likewise, a 7% increase for the special rural category is still a considerable increase. However, I believe these figures represent a fairer outcome than those currently proposed, while still providing the Shire with additional revenue to meet its obligations and maintain essential services. This amendment does not reject the need for additional revenue. It does not ignore the financial challenges facing our organisation. It simply asks whether we can share some of that burden ourselves and demonstrate to our community that we have listened to the pressures they are experiencing. When we consider this budget, we are not simply allocating revenue and expenditure. We are making decisions about the financial burden we place on our community, and that burden should be no greater than what is absolutely necessary. I believe we should put people before plans. Projects can be reviewed, timelines can be adjusted, priorities can be reconsidered, but the financial pressure on our residents is real and immediate now. Tonight, we are considering a draft rating strategy that will ultimately be presented to the community for consultation. I believe the figures proposed in this amendment provides a more balanced starting point for that conversation. My hope is that this amendment offers a middle ground that recognises both the financial needs of the organisation and the financial pressures facing the people we represent. When residents open their rate notices next year, I want them to know that someone around this table asked whether we could do better for them. For those reasons, I ask my fellow councillors to support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Mogg.
No, thank you. Reserve.
Any speakers against? Councillor McCleary, question?
If you indulge me, Mr. President, it's probably going to go towards if you indulge me, it'll be a question towards the CEO. What I want to understand is the suggested amendment goes 5 and 7%. I want to understand whether the special rule will come to the same rate in the dollar as the residential in that model of 5 and 7%, or don't we know?
Look, I think, can we invite you to restate that question, please, Councillor?
So what I want to know is if the 5%, 7%, whether the 7% brings the special rule rate to the same rate in the dollar, because the whole focus of part of that was to bring them in alignment, so it'll be a different rating.
So if you increase the special rural rate by 7%, effectively it'll be 2.3% behind the current residential rate that's been increased by 6%. So no, it'll still be behind. To bring it up to the residential rate, it needs to increase by 9.3%.
That's even with the 5%.
Oh, with the 5%.
Sorry,
So we're talking 5%.
Yeah, so with the 5%.
Then it's because we're rejigging, so it's a bit more of a...
There would still be a gap. There would still be a gap between the two. There wouldn't be parity.
Any speakers against? Councillor Noonan.
I'm not really, well, I'd like to speak to the motion, and I thank Councillor Councillor Montgomery for her very considered and compassionate view of what we do, the important role that we have. It does have a very big impact on the lives of, the thousands of people in our Shire. So I appreciate the thought that you've put into this. The concern that I have is that just as Bunbury had their GRV valuation this year, next year, I believe, we're due for our GRV reevaluation. And typically in that year, when Landgate comes around and revalues our properties, inevitably they increase their evaluation of the rental return that we will get from our properties. So next year we are more than likely in line for a significant increase in the Landgate GRV. So the impact of not moving up now this year is that it arguably makes the decisions that we make next year more difficult. However, that's a problem that we can face next year. The other concern is that if we do accept this proposal, it means that we have less revenue in order to achieve the outcomes that we had hoped to achieve. So it means that we will have to take some things off the table, or we'll have to defer some projects. Now, I'm not averse to that, but it means that we need to convey that expectation to residents that they're going to, the things that they had hoped for, or some of the things that they had hoped for might not happen next year, but it might be a little bit further down the track. So, yeah. But I thank Councillor Montgomery for her proposal.
Has you got to speak?
I didn't speak to it.
Are you seeking to speak, Councillor Monk?
I don't know why it's on, sorry.
Okay. Is there any other speakers from our fellow councillors for or against? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you very much. I guess I just want to add to a lot of the conversations that have gone on in this room. And I do understand what the Shire are trying to achieve, and I respect all of the hard work that's gone into everything that's been presented so far. But I have to stick with my community and express my concern about the changes to the special rural zone. And I think that was fairly reflected by the amount of people in the audience and also the people who weren't able to attend that would have liked to have been here. Now, I want to begin by reading what I've written because otherwise I'm going to go off task. I want to begin with not my own opinion, but with the Shire's own words. Now, the place plan that the Shire presented for the 23-27 that formally adopted by this council describes our community with limited local amenity and services of low provision. The place plan's own strategic vision for the region included, again, in the Shire's own words, protection of the rural living opportunities in Jalorop and surrounds. So I'm asking my fellow councillors that our own strategic plan commits us to protecting the rural living opportunities of this community, and yet the budget brought before us tonight proposes rates that those same residents, identical to urban residential properties but enjoy different services, we will not get. And I know we've been talking about services and I understand that, but I think we have to look a little bit beyond that sometimes because there is a lot of passion with what the Shire have perpetuated our regions are and now what they're changing. And I'm not going to go through what everybody else has said about sewage and rainwater and drains and sidewalks, etc. Because they're not complaints, they're the choices that people have made because they want to be in that area. I think what Councillor Montgomery has said resonates very, very much with some of us. And we all know from the 1st of July, there's going to be a lot of changes to excise subsidies with fuel. I believe electricity and other essential services are going to be reviewed and probably go up like everything else because let's face it, we all rely on fuel to get everything everywhere. And if that's going to go back up, then we're in trouble. I've had this conversation in my own house, and I suspect everybody in this chamber has had the same conversation. When costs exceed what a household can bear, the answer is not to spend more. It is to find a smarter way to deliver the services that are needed with what is available. So I respectfully suggest to the Shire to reconsider what they are proposing, even if it means going back to the table, and I know you're going to hate me for this, but I just don't think this is the time. And I listened to Councillor Noonan, who said, if it's not now, when is it going to be? Maybe it's going to have to be later, but I think at this present time, we really need to think about what we are going to be delivering to our community and how we should be treating them in times, unknown times. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, Mr. President, may I just ask a question?
Yes, of course, Councillor.
Could I just clarify the commercial rate that is being proposed in this amendment? Is it 5% as has just been put up there, or was the commercial rate to stay at 6.5%, similar to the UV?
Sorry, Councillor Noonan. I was only proposing to change those zones that were increasing by 6 to 5. The UV zones were to stay as originally said in the report. So Beck's writing it up now.
So that, as is written on the board?
Yes, that's correct.
So commercial to 5%?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they were at 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any other questions? Any other contribution by councillors? Councillor Noonan, another question?
Could I propose an amendment to this?
Pardon?
Could I propose an amendment to this amendment, please?
I think so. We've allowed it. Yeah. We've allowed Councillor Montgomery's amendment. To your lapsed amendment and to the substantive motion, or the original motion, so I can't see, unless I'm advised to the contrary, why we can't allow your amendment.
Through the chair, my understanding of the process is we must deal with this amendment as stands, and there's an outcome.
Yep.
And then a further amendment can be made.
That would be my...
Now, I realise it takes a lot longer and it's already late in the evening. However, we have to follow, when we're dealing with money in particular, have to follow our due process.
Okay.
Sorry,
then,
could I?
I think that's correct, Councillor Noonan, and I defer to our compliance officer.
Could I foreshadow the amendment, because it actually...
Yes, you can indicate a foreshadowed amendment.
Yeah, it impacts this decision. The foreshadowed amendment would be to change or revert the commercial rate back to 6.5%. Revert the commercial rate back to 6%.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, and again, if I'm being pedantic about this, because it's got to be done correctly, we have to deal with this as it stands, as put forward, and I'm quite understanding, so there's an outcome, and Councillor Noonan is then allowed to, bearing in mind that outcome, if it's in the positive, if it's carried, goes to the main...
We I think, are able to allow him to indicate what his foreshadowed motion is. We're not considering it at this point.
I would disagree, Chair, but that's a matter for you and your position.
I'll take advice. I'll stand corrected if I am. Yeah, but the advice from the CEO is that we can hear a proposal. So I'm not putting it in the motion, or indeed considering it as in preference to the motion that's before us at the moment. Okay, you comfortable with that?
Yes, no problems, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to speak. Is there any other speakers for or against? I would like to speak against it. I just don't think this is going to get the job done. I understand, and I'm enormously sympathetic to the individuals who feel that this is an unjust and unreasonable proposition in the current circumstances. But I revert back to what Councillor Noonan said earlier. If not now, when? If we don't deal with these issues, we are just creating a compounding issue into the future. And we're going to have to turn around next year and probably do something that no one will want either, and into the future years. And that will be for other councils to decide, of course, after subsequent elections and the like. But we have suffered the legacy of not facing up to the rating realities in consideration for the expectations of the community. Now, we heard from a section of the community tonight, in particular, in respect to their own, if I dare say so, self-interest. But if we talk to the broader community, they would also say that the services, facilities and resources available to them are inadequate also. and not delivering what perhaps they aspire that we should. We can't do everything for everyone, but we need to put ourselves in a position when we can aspire to undertake our responsibilities as a shire with the high growth and the high demands on our facilities and resources. What we have in front of us, originally proposed by the staff and indeed amended by Councillor Noonan, but now subsequently not agreed to, is that we have agreed as council to instruments such as the workforce plan, the three director structure. We've adopted the corporate business plan, we've adopted the long-term financial plan, and we've adopted many other instruments, including a trials plan that was mentioned tonight. We could go back and there's a litany of particular adoptions and agreements by council that all had financial implications. Now, of course, we can evolve and modify them, but we can't just, in my opinion, walk away from those relative short-term commitments that exist in the budget for the next year that are in place in the long-term, in the corporate business plan. Now, the CEO has already advised me, and she just mentioned this earlier this evening, that the reduction in the budget for the works program for next year has already been very substantial. I would like to see members of the community and councillors, should they not support what I believe is a reasonable rate increase, come forward and propose the items that should be cut. Because that's the inevitability. If we don't get something like what the staff has suggested, that's what the position we're going to be in. Now, we originally started off in the conversations and the briefings at a figure of 7% and a yield of approaching 9. What was it? Yeah, no, on the 7. And so we've come back, and the staff have come back after listening to the councillors and getting out the razor, have shaved it back to 6. That's a shave back. That's not aspirational, that's a shave back. And so I can't find myself supporting Councillor Montgomery's amendment. I can live comfortably with either of the original proposition published by the staff or the amendment put forward by Councillor Noonan, but that's now history. So the decision we have to make, and you need to seriously consider, notwithstanding the sympathy and the consideration we have for members of the community, you need to be thinking about what we're going to be doing with our budget and servicing the community into the future. I'll finish on that note, and I'll give the right of reply to Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I've said all that I can say on this. I just hope that you all vote with your conscience and, as I say, people before plans. Thank you.
Can I put the motion? Those in favour of the amendment? That's 3. Those against? That's Councillor Boyers, Councillor McCleary, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Mogg and Councillor Noonan. That has failed. We now revert back to the substantial motion as originally published in the business paper. Can I have, I moved that motion and I believe I had a seconder at the time. Can we go back to that? Moved Councillor Ferguson, seconded Councillor McCleary. I don't wish to comment any further. Councillor McCleary? Oh, no, I don't think we can. No, I think we're done. Is there any speakers against? Any speakers for?
Sorry, Councillor Mogg, you had a fair bit to say and wanted your opportunity. I feel that you had a lot, you were very, as you always are, very passionate about such topics, so I'd like to hear from you if you don't mind. If it's appropriate, Chair. I would need to take advice that given Councillor Mogg actually moved the first motion and spoke to it, that she is not in a position. Oh, okay. No, Councillor Mogg, no, you haven't spoken against. If you choose to speak, you may.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, President, and thank you, Councillor Voyer. I am very conflicted, but as I say, what's proposed is very discriminative of having both properties, urban residential and special residential. We don't have the services in Jallura. That's a lifestyle choice. I urge, what we've heard is how important it is to engage in the surveys, because the decision-making process relies on that and goes by that. And if these younger people want these services, just a reminder of what streetlights do to our nocturnal wildlife. The western ringtail possum, just a reminder, is critically endangered, and the knock-on effect that has to other fauna. And also, lighting is pollution for humans as well. And a lot of people choose to live in that lifestyle, for that's just one aspect. Adding on rates, landlords then put that onto their renter. Rents are high. Many people can't afford that, and it has impact on homelessness. Everybody's talking about homelessness. The bore has an impact on the Jallura community, and we're still getting over that, the mental and physical well-being, the impact that had on our community. And so that's why we're so passionate to have this put upon that community. I have hope, because tonight is about presenting something to everybody, and to be told that there is an opportunity to make amendments when it comes to council again. Yeah, services, I can't see that happening in Jallura anytime soon. I mean, we've been asking for services, water, sewerage, so that Capel can grow. We're landlocked in certain areas, but just on principle, I'm very conflicted, and I would like to present something, but I don't think it would get passed by council. So I just hope that something tonight is passed so that it can be brought forward, and if further amendments can happen, it can happen. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Mike. Your microphone. Oh, sorry. No, you've done it. My apologies. Most of us have had a go at this. I think there might be one or two councillors that haven't actually spoken to the motion. Councillor Voyers and Councillor Noonan haven't. I think Councillor... Wait. No, Councillor Hayes. Is there any other speakers who wish to speak for or against? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, the fellow councillors, and thank you to the officers who've prepared this motion. We're back to the original substantive motion. And we've spent a lot of time in workshops with the Shire staff. The Shire staff has spent a lot of time preparing this and, preparing the workplace, the plans, the roads and drainage and footpaths and all of those plans that, feed into this document, which we'll be addressing later on. All of those programs depend on us passing something tonight, and passing something which meets a figure or meets the expectations that we as councillors have discussed and in workshops and presented that the community has presented in the surveys, and that the staff have put into the long-term financial plan and the corporate business plan, and now the annual budget. So this is the end of a long process, and a very precise, very exact process. So playing around, shouldn't say playing around, but adjusting things by 1% here or 0.5% there, it can end up. It does obviously affect the rate take, but it affects all of the programs that are available as well. Whether we have to look at what are we going to cut, what do we add on. This substantive motion represents a 9.3% increase to the take from the rural residential zone 12, which will represent around about $40,000 extra more than if they were to pay, a 6.5. Now, I could, if I was making the same argument that I made for the increase that I had suggested in the rural rate, I would then ask, well, could that $40,000 be spent in special rural areas? Could it be spent developing seats and a safety fence around the new park that's been put in Sheoak? Could it be spent providing a playground or better seating facilities at Stratham? Could it provide better facilities at Rosecliff? But I am not going to ask for that. I'm not going to ask for that, because that then it has a ripple effect of pulling money from somewhere else, and we should solve all of those competing interests. We shouldn't be doing it here, I believe, around the table at a council meeting. We should be making the cases as firmly as we can, and coming to a position with the Shire officers, with all of the information that they have from community surveys, the advice of the CEO and the directors, and then we should be supporting that program. So I don't think it's appropriate to, at this stage, try and adjust things for the benefit of one sector or another, but I think that we have to have an outcome. And I fully appreciate that that one in particular sector of the community is not going to be happy about this. And we, as councillors, will have to bear the consequence of that. And whether rightly or wrongly, that's part of our role as councillors, and I'm happy with that. The final point that I'd make is that this is what we're doing tonight. Is we're deciding what are we going to advertise. We're not actually deciding the rate here. Okay, this is what we're going to go out to the public and say. This is what we're thinking about. We will get a lot of feedback, and we've had a fair bit tonight, but I think we'll get a lot more in the coming weeks, and the meetings on Tuesday and Thursday, the 23rd and 25th of this month. So, and then it's up to us to make the decision at the subsequent meeting based on that feedback. So, I commend the officer's recommendation, and think that we need to advertise something. We need to listen to the feedback. So let's get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Is there any other speakers for or against?
I've got a question, or more as a statement, but it's...
Is it a question? A question or you want to speak?
It's more a statement than a
question. If you can speak to the motion or against it. What are you doing? What would you prefer?
You stated before that councillors hadn't spoken to for or against it, or spoken to or against. what my statement is, we don't have to speak for or against. All we have to do is vote for or against. There's nothing to say we have to speak for.
No, you don't have to. No, not at all. No.
Yeah, it's just that you put that question to us.
No, I was only inviting you to speak, giving you that opportunity, Councillor Hastie. I wasn't insisting you speak. It's an opportunity, but not an insistence.
All right, I misunderstood you.
No, not at all. I appreciate your interest. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak for or against? Then I have the right of reply. I'm sorry, Councillor Montgomery. I'll get used to looking left. Please go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that, yes, we have to decide on something and we have to advertise something, but I think it's really important that we're happy with what we're putting out. I've already put up an alternate, which unfortunately did not get up, but I think if you're not happy with the recommendation as it stands, now is the time to do something about it, because when we get further down the line, our CEO and staff have already done a significant amount of work. They will continue to do a significant amount of work to refine this budget. And if we come back in a month's time with a different figure, they have to do another lot of work. So if you're not happy to put your name on this recommendation as it is tonight, you should not be voting for it. Thank you.
I might invite the CEO to comment on the fact that when the matter comes back to council, what capacity is there to adjust should that be sought?
Thank you for your question through the chair. Having been in this position before on the 11th hour, it does happen. And it's one of those situations whereby if there's an amendment to the final rate table, that's presented to council once it's gone through the 21-day submission review process, and council vote on an amendment, then basically it's the administration's responsibility to make the adjustments to the budget in light of what the impact is of what the amendment is in the rate table.
So the opportunity, should that, I just want to clarify that answer, and I think a number of councillors might be interested in it, is that if it comes back and there is consideration for varying this particular proposal that's going out for public exhibition for 21 days, that we have the capacity to vary it should we so choose, and then it would be up to you and the staff to deal with that accordingly. I think the CEO is saying yes. I don't think she's happy about it. I think she's saying yes. Because it creates a monster problem, no doubt. Look, I got the right. Is there any other speakers for or against? I think I've got the brief. I'll take the brief right of reply. I'll listen very carefully to the interested and passionate contributions by my fellow councillors. I appreciate them, and I have given them serious consideration in my own perspective on where I arrive at this conclusion. I do note that Councillor Mogg, I don't want to single her out particularly, but she spoke very movingly about her own concerns. I think that they are able to be dealt with progressively. I might just add that we've got a family of ringtails outside our house underneath a street lamp, if that's any consolation. Not much, I think, but anyway, it does exist. I think that we are obliged, given that we've worked through a couple of amendment proposals that have not succeeded, to actually adopt this motion as it stands and let the council staff get on with it, get it out on exhibition and get it dealt with. If it comes back and there's sufficient interest in adjusting it, then we'll have to make that very difficult, awkward position at that point. But I don't think we've got a lot of option other than to adopt this tonight. So I'll put the motion. So those in favour? That's 4-4. That's lost, because indeed I can't use a casting vote. Or what I can suggest is that councils councillors take a 5-minute break and consider their position. Because if we don't reach a decision tonight, then we can't put it out on exhibition on Friday and we won't have the 21 days and we'll be dealing with having to seek permission from the Department of Local Government to extend the period. I would seriously ask those of you who voted against this to consider your position. Beg pardon? Is it a question?
They didn't actually show hands.
I'll invite the vote again. Those in favour? Councillor Noonan, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor McCleary and Councillor Voyers. Those in voting against? Councillor Montgomery, Councillor Mogg, Councillor Sharp and Councillor Hasty. Now, because I can't use a casting vote and we lose an absolute majority, that's lost technically. I would suggest we take a 5-minute break if the CEO agrees with me and we come back and reconsider it because we need to consider it tonight and get it dealt with tonight. Thank you. Are you ready to resume? Okay. Councillors, notwithstanding my previous advice that I would suggest that we take a break and reconsider it, the advice I've received, and it's been pointed out to me, and it's quite succinct and unambiguous, item 7.13 in the standing orders, a member must not reopen discussion on any decision of council or committee except for the purpose of moving a revocation motion under clause 11.2. I'm not proposing to do that. So the motion remains as was voted on. Because of the failure of absolute majority, it was lost. And accordingly, we move on to the next item on the business paper. I don't know whether the CEO wants to comment on how that might be handled into the future, but no doubt there'll be communication.
So, sorry, Chair, can I just ask, what was the reference number you just gave out?
7.13.
Okay, thank you.
I wish it wasn't there, but there you go. Okay. We move on to the next item on the paper. That is the item 6.2, plumbing maintenance services. The recommendation is that the council accept the tender submission. Is that right? Oh, no, here it is, 6.2. The council awards the contract submission for request for tender 2603 plumbing maintenance services to the recommended tender for the tendered schedule of rates detailed within the confidential attachment 15.2.2. Direct the successful respondents' name to be included in the advertised minutes. Can I have a move for that motion, please? Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, President. I move the motion.
Hang on. Thank you. I need to get a seconder. Councillor Noonan. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you. I move the motion as read.
Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I speak to the motion?
Of course.
Yep. I'd just make the point that with all of the subsequent programs of works that we're going to address now, we're actually putting the cart before the horse because we don't know how much money we're going out to advertise, even though it's just an advertisement. So we can't really commit ourselves to these programs of works. That's my concern. So they become more and so that's really probably a query as much as anything. Could I perhaps get some clarification?
Maybe you'd care to direct that question to the CEO?
Yeah,
or one of the other staff?
whether we should need to defer all of the programs of works, or whether we can proceed. Yeah.
Beg your pardon? CEO.
Thank you. Through the chair, it's my understanding that with these RFTs, the money that's been awarded for this contract submission is contained within the current annual budget. Okay, that's what we're making the decision on.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam CEO and Mr. President. In that case, I'm happy to endorse this program of works. Good to see something pass and some work getting done.
Any speakers for or against? Councillor Mogg, right of reply. Councillor Mogg forgoes her right of reply. I put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.3, request for tender, electrical maintenance services. The council awards the contract request for tender 2604 electrical maintenance services to the recommended tender for the tendered amount detailed within confidential item 15.3.2. Direct successful respondents named to be included in the advertised minutes. Can I have a mover for that motion, please? Councillor McCleary, a seconder. Councillor Noonan. Councillor McCleary.
I'll move the motion as read.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, the staff have gone through the RFT process, so I'm happy to accept their recommendation.
Any speakers against? Councillor McCleary. I put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.4, request for tender, property and maintenance building services. The council awards the contract submission for request for tender 2605, property building and maintenance services to the recommended tenderer for the tendered schedule of rates detailed in confidential item 15.4.2. Directs the successful respondents named to be included in the advertised minutes. Could I have a move for that motion, please? Councillor Sharp, seconder. Councillor Voyers. Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mr. President. I appreciate the work that the staff have done putting these things together. Thank you.
Councillor Voyers.
Yes, I endorse that. Thank you.
Speakers against? Councillor Sharp. Councillor Sharp foregoes a right of reply. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.6, revision of model code of conduct for council members, committee members and candidates. The recommendation is that council adopt the revised Shire of Capel code of conduct for council meetings, committee members and candidates as contained in attachment 5.6.2. Can I have a move for the motion, Councillor Voyers? Seconder? Councillor Sharp? Councillor Voyers?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Look, a lot of work has gone on behind the scenes by a number of our people in this room in relation to this. This is a mandated change to the code of conduct model, as it's called, for all shires and cities. And we followed suit, and we've done a very good job to make sure we fit within the regulations, as well as to make sure that the code of conduct is suitable for everyone who's employed or has a relationship, shall we say, with the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Voyers. Councillor Sharp?
No, thank you. I just have to concur with Councillor Voyers. Thank you.
Any speakers against? Any further speakers for? Councillor Voyers?
As tabled, thank you, Chair.
I'll move the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.7. The council seek to authorise leave for the Chief Executive Officer, Samantha Chamberlain, from the 26th of June 26 to 9th of July 26, and that council appoint Gary Clark as Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Shire of Capel for a fixed term commencing the 26th of June 26 and ending 9th of July 26. Is satisfied Gary Clark is suitably qualified for the position of Acting Chief Executive Officer. Adopts a confidential schedule detailing the remuneration arrangements negotiated for the position of Acting Chief Executive Officer that are in accordance with the Salaries and Allowance Tribunal's Band 3 determination. Authorise the Shire President to endorse and affix the common seal for the Acting Chief Executive Officer's contract of employment. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor McCleary, seconder. Councillor Hastie. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope you're going to enjoy your holiday, CEO, when you go for those few weeks. Look, I think it's appropriate that we get Gary back in as acting because he's been here for a while and probably an easier handover from the CEO to Gary in that period.
He's back. Councillor Hastie, I think you seconded it.
Yes, I agree. Got my thoughts all wrong. The CEO, Gary Clark, is the most appropriate person to take up the position while the CEO flies over to Maldives. No, I'm joking. Thank you.
Any further speakers for or against? Councillor McCleary, right to reply? Councillor McCleary forgoes his right to reply. Those in favour? Declare that carried. Public question time. Well, there's no one here in the public gallery, so I don't think we're going to deal with that. I'm about to close the meeting. Is there anything you wish to say, CEO? Well, it's polite. Anything you wish to say is polite.
Thank you for approving my leave. And it's really unfortunate because I won't be here when we open the DLYH, but I know that the team around the table will do a sterling job representing the Shire, entertain our guests and whoever else wants to turn up and celebrate in such a beautiful building. So thank you for that and look forward to returning. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mogg wishes to say something.
Thank you, President, for indulging me in some time. I'd just like to apologise to Council, my constituents. Due to my accident, and the medication I've been on, lack of sleep, and I've been depressed and sad. And thanks to Councillor Voyer for bringing that to my attention. Why? And to support tonight, thank you. I probably would have been best left at home, but I apologise. I just feel I haven't brought my best self to the table. Thank you.
Councillor Mogg, I would think on behalf of the entire council, you don't need to apologise. You expressed yourself with sincerity, passion and interest in the community, notwithstanding the fact that you're undergoing a rehabilitation process. And your contribution was welcome, and I think we're very grateful for it. So please do not feel in any way diminished. You actually performed very credibly in your role, if I may say so, on behalf of the entire council. Do I have any issue with that? None. So I think you have the support of the council. So don't leave here feeling in any sense dismayed.
You've done well, so I think you've done well.
Yeah. Look, is there any other comment or question? That being the case, I'll declare the meeting closed at 9:27. Thank you, staff, councillors,